Welcome back, y'all. It's been a little while. It's been so long, in fact, that I had to get some help from Turk and Big Sim himself to get the stream going. But we're here, we're live, and we're in an airplane that I'm super excited about, the Synaptic A220 300, the Canada bus itself. Super excited to do a showcase on this for y'all. The chat is blowing up. Welcome to everyone. Mike Roman, thanks for the shout out, man. I appreciate that. We got Blackbird Controls in the house. We got V1 Sim Water back from serving his country here. So Blackbird Controls has a new A220 tiller set up for his modular tiller. So if you're looking for a tiller for this airplane when it releases, go check him out. V1 Sim, you may have heard of him. He's a up-and-coming YouTuber here in the airline pilot space, so go give his channel a like. AJ Fernari, welcome. We got, let's see, just so many people in the chat to shout out. Thanks for coming out. T Tucko, welcome, dude. Thanks, everyone, for showing up. This is exciting. We got a new PC. We've got a new sim. We're in Flight Sim 2024. We're streaming from the captain seat because I did upgrade, which is the reason for the absence from YouTube there. It's just not having time with the new schedule to stream much. So looking forward to getting started, and I've been working with the Synaptic team for probably I don't know, a year, maybe a little longer, to help bring this 220 to you in the sim. These guys they've cooked. It's an amazing airplane, and I think we're going to see as we dive into it that it really does a good job of simulating the 220, which is a very unique airplane in real live. Teach, thanks for the $5 super chat, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for the cows, dude. No problem, dude. Anytime. Love to help a fellow pilot out. New mic. No, it's the same mic, but it's a different stream software, so maybe it's picking it up a little different. This is a early morning stream, trying to simulate the flights that I get as the plug captain. So we're going to be starting out at 5 a.m. out of Chicago, going to LaGuardia in the Airbus A220. Look at that external model. T Tucko, holy crap, $22 super chat. Welcome back. Hope you're doing well. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this 220, and I hope you do it quick before V1 goes live to push you down, dude. Thanks for the $22 super chat, man. Dude, V1 Sim, give him a shout out, man. He's plugging away out on the line, flying passengers around. He was kind enough to spend part of his layover getting my boomer self all set up for the stream. So I appreciate him doing that. Chaos, voice is a little quiet. We'll bump that up. All right. So V1 Sim on YouTube told me to leave the microphone all the way up, and I didn't listen to him. So maybe I should take his advice in the future. Turk, mic's a little louder, and send the $2 back. Thanks, Turk. Sounds good. Alrighty, boys. Look at the external model of this airplane. It is absolutely incredible. I think one of the best looking visual models in the sim. Unfortunately, my keybinds, I don't have the walk around mode working in 2024, so Temu streamer here, I'm not going to be able to give you the full in-depth walk around, but I think you'll see as we move around the airplane in spot view, and then as we get started, that the external model here is just absolutely next level. The animations are incredible, the proportions are good, and if I recall, Synaptic had this airplane modeled and then went back and remodeled the entire airplane. So this is version 2 of the model, and it's been completely redone. The ailerons that's a bug. They shouldn't rise up like that in real life, and that's something that the team is tracking down. So we're going to address that as we go. There's a couple small things that still need addressing, but the great thing about the Synaptic team is that they're super passionate, and this is not a release out the door, airplane's done kind of thing. They're going to keep adding features and updates and things as they get feedback from real world operators as well as simmers. So let's jump in and check out the cockpit. So cockpit of the 220 is again very well modeled, common theme. And we are going to use just the normal procedures. So as you walk in and establish electrical power, in real life this is not what you want to see, because the airplane power up is very sensitive. So when you walk in, you're going to check your logbook, make sure that the logbook is present on the flight deck, make sure that the parking brake is on. This is important because the brakes are electric in the 220, and so if you turn the parking brake off and establish electrical power, the airplane can actually start rolling. So you want to make sure the parking brake is set, the logbook is good, you don't have any do not move tags on the throttles or anything that maintenance is put on. And then we're going to come up here to the overhead, and we're going to turn battery 1 and battery 2 to the on position. Deej, I thought you were going to say this is not what you want to see, meaning the FO is here and the damn plane is still dark. Dude, 100%, man. What's this guy doing? All right, so both batteries come on. And at this point, you wait. The power-up sequence for the airplane takes about 8 minutes. And at this point, you don't touch anything in the airplane. Not the master caution, the PA, the seatbelt sign, none of it. And you just let the airplane boot up. And let all the computers come online in the correct sequence. So Synaptic has modeled all of the, not all, but a large majority of the ICAS messages, and they pop up and scroll like you would expect them to. And we're just going to let the airplane boot up here. Mickey G, welcome, dude. There's V1 just sitting there doing nothing. Yeah, 8 minutes. It's a long time, right? So at this point, what we'll do is V1 Sim check text and then send $2 back. That's amazing. Okay. Yeah, so 8 minutes the electrical power on, right? So what we're going to do is we're just going to let this cook, and we're going to go back and we would brief the flight attendants or do some other things here just to kind of let the airplane figure itself out, you know, electrically before we really start touching anything. So we'll open the cockpit door here, come back. This is a good time to kind of check out the model, right? So we come back here, we got the door open, and then you can see the cabin is also fully modeled. We'll explore that in a little bit more detail later on in the stream. All right. So you can see the airplane is electrically starting up. We can establish ground power a little bit sooner in this than we would in the real airplane, but this is also a good time to go outside, do the walk around, stuff like that. You really just don't want to interfere with the startup. The big one is the seatbelt sign. Sometimes if people turn the seatbelt sign on during this power up, then the seatbelt signs will actually get out of sync with the switch, and that requires a whole shutdown and restart the airplane. So, Oscar, the true pilot is back. $2 super chat, man. Thank you very much. AJ, oh, you told me to update the YouTube bios. Dude, I forgot to do that before we went on stream. I'll get that after stream here. All right, let's establish ground power. So we'll come here to the tablet. We will attach the GPU. We've got the jet bridge attached. We'll throw some luggage on. And then external power is available. We'll come to the Synaptic page. Make sure that it's showing up on the Synaptic page. It's clean power. And then we can come up here and put it on the bus. There we go. Once we put external power on, we'll get some more messages cycling, and then the FO side DUs as well as the lower DU, DU5, display unit 5 will boot up as well. You'll see that the PFD has a attitude heading aligning, do not taxi message. This is basically the same as the IRS 7.3, and it's automatic. You turn the airplane on, it automatically aligns the IRS. The downside to this is if an IRS dumps, there's no way to realign the IRS without completely powering down the jet and powering it back on again. So one of the benefits of the real 220, you don't have to worry about a knob on the overhead setting up an alignment, anything like that. But if one of the 3 IRSs goes down, then you're kind of cooked, and you have to shut the jet down, power it down completely, and then start it back up again. So, Mickey G, get out of here. 2x3 seating doesn't make it a regional jet. This thing holds as many people as the 737-800. So, deceivingly big airplane. How long have I been flying the 220 for? So I flew it for 2 years as an FO, 2.5 years as an FO, and then about 6 months as a captain so far. So, alrighty. Okay, so we've got the IRSs aligning. So the first thing we'll do is we'll do the kind of the flow when you get in the seat. So you'll test the oxygen mask. Come around here. And now we'll set the brightnesses on the DUs. So these are the brightness knobs for these 2 DUs. The FO has them over on his side as well. And then the lower DU brightness is right here. And then this is for the integrated standby instrument. And then we're going to turn the light brightnesses off, just because we are going to go into a day flight here. Get those adjusted. So the lights are all adjusted. Come across here, make sure the side stick priority button is closed. These buttons are for CPDLC, but the airplane does not have CPDLC yet, except for getting your clearance on the ground. So on the ground, you can get a pre-departure clearance, but in flight, we do not have CPDLC. That's true to the real airplane, it's just kind of the nature of the beast. AJ, $5 super chat, man. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life of plastic. Love it, dude. Please send back. Love it. Man, I'm going to have to issue a lot of refunds after this stream. All right, yeah. All right, so we're going to come here and then start the quickest way to do the kind of take care of all the administrative tasks you have to is just start with these quick access keys and step through them from left to right here. So this is the map page. Once the IRS is aligned, we'll get location information obviously populated We're going to turn on the VSD, the vertical situation display, and we're going to turn traffic on as well. I'm going to turn terrain on momentarily here. All right, and then we're going to select, this is all pilot preference, what you want displayed on the map, and it's very, very customizable. FMS, just make sure that the right database is selected here. We'll come back to the FMS. The CNS page is where you can set up your radios if you don't want to use the CTP, the comm tuning panel on the glare shield there. So a common theme with the 220 is there's about 6 different ways to do everything on the airplane. So you can either tune your radios up here, or you can tune them down here on the CNS tune page. Data link and CPDLC are in progress, so they're not simulated right now. CPDLC in the real airplane, like I said, is just pre-departure clearances, and then data link is airline specific. And we had that in testing. I think it was deactivated for release, but it may be coming back here fairly soon. All right. Let's see. Mr. PI Oxygen. Hello, I am also an A220 pilot, domestic US. How can I bring up feedback through official message? Methods we have backing from Airbus or my carrier would like to bring up concerns. Dude, reach out to the team, man. Jump on the Synaptic Discord and send a message to Mike, Jay, or Harsh, and send them your feedback. And they've been very, very open to suggestions and inputs and things like that. Okay, the checklist page. Right now, we just want to make sure that the checklists are all reset. But this is where the electronic checklists are all done in the airplane. You have a little QRH in the airplane that's about, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch thick. But all of your normal operations and even your non-normals and such are done via the electronic checklist, as well as some procedures. So if you, for example, are going to de-ice, then you can run the de-ice procedure here, and it's all done via the electronic checklist. This is a great feature of the real airplane. And Synaptic have modeled it well. Blackbird Controls, thanks for the $5, man. Yeah, good to see you streaming. I'm back in it, man. It's been busy, but we're stoked. Oh, actually, Mr. PI Oxygen, Mike Roma, who responded to you in the chat, is actually a Synaptic dev. So hit him up, and he'll get your feedback log there. All right, so the ECL, we'll talk about this more as we go, but this is a great feature of the real airplane there. Synaptic pages. So these are kind of all your systems. We'll just step through these. We've got the tire pressure monitoring system, which Delta actually has deactivated on all their airplanes via circuit breaker, and so this is correctly not working because we are flying a Delta livery. If you flew a Swiss livery or something, then the tire pressure gauges would be working. Brake temps down here, APU block, engine oil. You want to make sure you have above 19 quarts on the engine oil. And we're good to go there. Yeah, the Synaptic team is in the chat, man. Like I said, the overall theme with this airplane is that the Synaptic devs are extraordinarily passionate about getting this right. And they're open to feedback, so that's kind of refreshing in the flight sim space. So I think you'll find that this is a living airplane, and it's going to improve and be optimized with time. This is the air panel, so we don't have any bleed sources to the airplane right now, but you can see all the valves and the bleed lines, and then as we apply air, you'll see green flow lines. We've got our doors page, the electrical page, again similar to the air page, just showing the flow of electricity throughout the aircraft. The flight controls page comes up. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention about the checklist, AJ, thanks for reminding me. The checklists are livery specific, so you can download a checklist for each individual aircraft, as well as they're user editable. So if you want to make a virtual airline and run a checklist in accordance with your own SOPs, you can actually go onto a checklist editor that Synaptic has provided and build your own electronic checklist that will interface with the airplane. We've got our side stick test here. So this, it's just like a video game calibration. Shows up in the real airplane when the hydraulics are powered off, and what you'll do is you'll see the blue dot. We're going to run our stick full aft, full forward, full left and full right and just check the calibration of the side stick, and you do that in the real airplane. So you know that is true to form. Now, one thing you'll notice is, and this is just due to a limitation with flight sim hardware, when we go full aft, the stick stops just short of the actual full stop there. This is the real airplane has a soft detent right there, and then if you pull pretty hard through the soft detent, then you'll go to the hard stop. It was a sim limitation, not sim limitation. It was a design choice to sim the airplane to the soft stop, because the hard stop, one, you never really use it in real life. Two, it'd be tough to figure out a calibration and a way to stop people from going to the hard stop, because the hard stop is for things like terrain avoidance, where you want to override protection from the airplane, and you just don't find yourself there in normal flight hardly ever. So you'll check your side stick calibration. The FO does the same via this, and then once we power up the hydraulics, this side stick calibration goes away. All right, fuel. We'll load this up via sim brief, but this is just, there's 3 fuel tanks on the airplane. They're loaded in a very specific sequence. Mike Roman, doesn't maintenance need to take a look when you enter hard stop? I don't think maintenance needs to look necessarily just due to going to the hard stop, but if you went to the hard stop, there's a possibility that you exceeded an aircraft limitation they might need to look at. So if you were going fast and you went to the hard stop, you'd probably overstress the airplane, and they have to look at it. But they don't have to inspect it purely because you went to the hard stop, but chances are if you went to the hard stop, there's a different reason they have to inspect the jet. So the wing tanks, and then the center tank, kind of standard. You fill the wing tanks up first, then the center tank, but you fill the wing tanks to about 80% of their capacity, then you fill the center tank, and then you fill the rest of the wing tanks up. It's a very specific fuel loading procedure that gets messed up a lot in the real world if fuelers aren't familiar with the 220. Garlic, do you also check the hard stop when checking the flight controls? Yes, you do. On the initial test, you go to the hard stop with power off, and then once power is applied to the aircraft, hydraulic power is applied to the aircraft, you do not check the hard stop on the actual flight control check. Hydraulic page. So there's 3 hydraulic systems on the airplane, 1, 2, and 3. There's a PTU, a power transfer unit, similar to an A320 that takes power from the right side and sends it over to the left side, 1A, or sorry, 1, hide 1, with the left engine off. And then you can see here a list of all the systems on the aircraft that are run off of each hydraulic system. Avionics page. So this is where you would do a lot of your tests, right? So you can do your lights test, your TCAS test, your ice detector test, those kinds of tests. You can do it here. To be honest with you, on the majority of the flights, you don't test anything here. Ice detector test will be done on the very first flight of the day. It is simulated, but that's about the only one that I've ever done on here. You'll do a lamp test or something if kids come up to the flight deck, but the page looks identical to this. V-Speeds is blanked out in my operator up here, and some of these tests are in work to be added at a later date. Info is going to be anything that shows up on the ICAS. If it has amplifying information, it'll show up here. So earlier, before we had the IRSs aligned, we'd have a little message when the fuel doors open. You'll have a message. You can acknowledge them here, and they'll show up. And then the circuit breaker page. This is where the virtual circuit breakers live. So you can see here, the Delta livery has the tire pressure monitoring unit out, and we can lock it. And that circuit breaker is now effectively collared in the out position. You can see all of these circuit breakers that are modeled. Synaptic has gone through and modeled these circuit breakers, but the vast majority of the circuit breakers they're all virtual, right? So unlike an airplane with physical circuit breakers, software controls the majority of the electrical routing through the aircraft. There are a few thermal circuit breakers back behind the pilots right here for systems, that require a physical circuit breaker, and you can see that these have been modeled as well with their amp ratings. All right. B1, is there a limitation with center tank fuel where wing tanks must be full before there can be more than 1,000 pounds to the center? No, so there's they have to be 80% full, then you can fill the center tank, and then you can top off the wing tanks, but there's actually a limitation. If you have more than 6,200 pounds in the wing tanks, you have to start the left engine first, because otherwise it'll vent the wing fuel overboard through the vent. So they try to avoid actually topping off the wing tanks and rely more on center fuel, which is kind of backwards from the 7.3, where they want the wing tanks completely full first. Let's see, does anyone know why Delta disabled the brake sensors? It's not the brake sensors, it's the tire pressure sensors, and I think it was just maintenance. Alrighty. So that's the Synaptic pages. So we step through that, do the flight controls check, throw the doors page up, and then last thing you would do in the real world is you would set your audio panel up appropriately. The first officer, meanwhile, would do the same thing over on this side of the cockpit. And the first officer is also responsible for setting up the radios. So we can talk about the control tuning panel, the CTP, right here. And this is kind of your one-stop shop, if you will, for all the radios in the airplane. This 1-2 button here swaps between the left and right radios, so you can offside tune the radios, if you will. So here you can see VHF 1 and nav 1, which are the captain's radios. We're going to throw just for some random frequency. I'm not on VATSIM or anything, so I'm going to just throw something in there so we don't get any ADIS or anything like that. The nav radios are automatically tuned, so you can select automatic nav tuning, and the airplane will automatically tune the appropriate nav source there. So you want to make sure that nav 1 and nav 2 are both set to automatic modes as part of your pre-flight. The transponder you'll set with the double stack knob here, the tune data knob, to whatever your ATC transponder code is. And then also you can set your flight ID. So we're in a Delta livery today, so we'll set our flight number here, and this flight number is what gets pulled by ATC and CPDLC for your pre-departure clearance. So you want to make sure that this is set correctly, because if it's not, you can get the wrong flight plan pushed to. So we're going to set 1422. That's what I threw in the sim brief. And what you'll see is that as you set the flight ID here, it populates on the PFD next to flight ID for your ATC comms. All right. Diving further into the CTP, the tune menu. Weather radar would be there if it was simulated, but due to the Microsoft Flight Simulator API, the weather radar is not synced. You've got a clock right here with UTC time and the date. The standby nav is just an HSI, so if you've lost all of your primary displays, you can navigate the airplane off of the backup nav and the ISIS or the ISI, which is down here. Flight plan vector cage. So once we get the airplane moving, you'll see a flight path vector, a little airplane here, and you can cage it, which keeps it laterally centered, or you can fly with cage off, which means that the flight path vector is free to move left and right as an indicator of crosswinds and gravity. So most people fly with it off. It changes the shape of the FPV as well if you have it caged. And then the place that we go most often is PFD nav, and this is where you'll set your minimums, change your heading reference from magnetic to true, which I've never done in a real airplane, and also ensure that your landing elevation is set to FMS, so that the pressurization system pulls your landing field elevation out of the flight management system. So we'll come back here when it's time to land in New York. But that's the CTP, and that's generally the responsibility of the first officer. First officer will also have the checklist pulled up on the left side of the DU, and then on the right side we'll have the Synaptic pages as well. We'll individually go through and check all the data on the Synaptic pages, and then generally live on the electrical and flight control pages during the pre-flight. All right. It's going to be a little bit of a slow-paced stream because I'm just trying to go through all the systems on the airplane. since it's very different than the 737s and the 320s that we have in flight sim. So hopefully this can be a reference for you, and then we'll plan on doing some tutorials later on that are in kind of a short format, so you can reference them as you start flying the airplane yourself. Mike Roma calls the developer Synaptic and the system info pages Synaptic. Got those backwards. Yeah, I guess that's right. It's Synaptic Sim and their Synaptic pages. McAllen, Mike Roma, are you guys committed to bringing failures based on mean time between failures? Yeah, I don't know. Over to Mike on that, but it is modeled very in depth at this point, and I think there's a lot of base work done behind the scenes to set the airplane up for future growth, if you will. All right. Does the real airplane have synthetic vision? If so, will that sim will the sim get that down the road? The real airplane, at least at my company, does not have synthetic vision. No. It also does not have. I'll turn this down a little bit for that buzzing noise. I don't know if that's any better. The real airplane does not have synthetic vision. Some operators have a heads-up display, which you probably saw on the CTP. There's a heads-up display option down here, and I think the plan is to bring that in the 100. I don't know anything about the HUD. My company doesn't have it, so yeah, that's for someone else to talk about. All right. Blackbird, are the dials on the MCP all push functionality or pull? No. So it's more like a Boeing functionality, but there's push to sync, push for fine. So the altitude knob, for example, is always in thousands, but if you push, it'll go to hundreds, and then the speed you can push to sync push for airspeed or Mach with the center button there. But it's not a push and pull like Airbus is. The whole auto flight system is more Boeing than Airbus, but it's kind of unique to the 220, and we'll discuss it more as we get flying. Fly-by-follow, were you beta testing for the 220? I was. So I am a little biased because I've been part of this project, at least from a testing perspective, for a long time. But I'm going to try and bring you the most honest showcase that I can here, just so that you know what you're getting, for your $66. So, all right, so that's the pilot flying, the captain and first officer's, initial checks when they get in the airplane, and then you'll go into the checks for your role during that flight. So the pilot monitoring, which is start up at the overhead. Window heat can come off. The windows are huge and they don't open, so the window heat actually heats the cockpit up pretty significantly. So I think you'll find most operators keep those off when you're sitting at the gate, just because it gets so hot in the cockpit. Lights can come off. The annunciator brightness will stay up bright. There's a dim position for night ops if you need it. Reading light is functional. Operates as you would think it would. Windshield wiper for the captain, first officer down here in the corners. We'll come up here to the fire panel. Just make sure that everything is dark guarded, not pushed in. So those are all latched. The hydraulic panel, the shut-off valves are closed and guarded. The PTU is in auto, and then you want to turn all of the hydraulic pumps as well to auto. Okay, so we'll get those set up. That gives the aircraft control over the hydraulic pumps. The electrical panel, 2 batteries, which we talked about. This is the ram air turbine switch that'll drop the rat out of the belly of the aircraft. External power is currently in use. Make sure that all the other switches for the generators and the gen disconnects are down and guarded. APU switch, which we'll turn on here in a second. The TAWS for the terrain awareness, GPWS, that kind of thing, down and guarded. Fuel panel is very simple. It's auto, and off. If you have to transfer fuel, which you very rarely do, you would do it here with the fuel transfer switch or the gravity transfer, but the boost pumps stay in auto, and you don't turn on or off fuel pumps in the airplane. It's all done manually or automatically by the airplane. Air panel, temperature knobs, they work like you would think. Cargo heat goes to low heat in the front. The aft compartment is not heated, so all animals have to go in the forward if you have animals on board. And the rest of the air panel is just dark and guarded as a philosophy. Anti-ice is in auto. ELT is armed. Inlet and exhaust for equipment cooling. This is a holdover button from early A220s. It actually had a physical inlet on the side of the airplane. That's been removed as Airbus decided that they didn't need the extra air, and so new 220s do not have the inlet button. But this controls the Wi-Fi in a lot of companies. Emergency exit lights can come to arm. FO reading light and wiper, and then we can turn on the seatbelt signs. Landing lights and taxi light can stay off. The logo can come on. Nav can come on. And coming down here, we're going to verify that the speed collar is an FMS. So if you look at the flight control panel, you can select a manual speed, or you can rotate the collar to an FMS speed and allow the FMS to dictate your airspeed. We're going to use FMS. Coming down, the auto brake goes to RTO for takeoff. Verify that the throttles are at idle, which they are. Speed brake handle is stowed. You may, during the stream, you may see a spoiler mismatch advisory. That's a product of my my Bravo setup right now, and not the 220 aircraft. Flap slat handle right here, as well as the alternate flap handle, and then light controls, trim. Trim in the 220 is interesting because there is an aileron trim switch, but in normal operation, the aileron trim is inoperative, and that's true to the real airplane. Aileron trim only works in the degraded mode. The display reversion panel, so you can see here, currently the engine instruments are on the left. You can swap those, put them over on the FO side, if you will, but we typically fly with them always on the captain side, as well as if you lose an air data probe or something, you can select the good one here, and then the parking brake. And that's the pilot monitoring pre-flight, just basically making sure that everything is in automatic, going from there. Catching up on the chat. Regional chat cockpits don't have opening windows. I know, I miss the opening windows so much, just for coordinating with ground crew, or even just having the window open on a nice day when it's 70 degrees in San Diego. But I don't get those trips anymore, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But yeah, the opening window I actually do miss. Alrighty, so that's the pilot monitoring pre-flight. Now let's dive in and actually set up the FMS. So we'll come in the tablet, we'll go to flight, we'll import from SimBrief. SimBrief integration is pretty standard these days. We'll go to the load sheet. We'll import the SimBrief load sheet. We will load that. Okay. We're pretty light, which that'll work. Zero fuel weight. It's currently 117, so we'll be well below landing weight in LaGuardia, so that's fine. All right, so now we can dive into the FMS. By the time we take off, V17 will be in Costa Rica. Flight plan timed out with center. Yeah, we're doing a fan flight. We're doing an instructional flight, so we're gonna take a while here. Definitely not getting off the gate in 30 minutes. The FMS is fairly unique in that it's the interface is through this keyboard, this cursor, like a trackball setup, which is simulated as if it's a touchscreen, sort of. It follows your cursor here, which is probably the best way you can simulate it in the sim, to be honest with you. Database page, you're just making sure that the active period is correct, which it is. Our nav data is up to date. I'm going to go through the actual setup that we use on the line, and what you're going to see is I'm going to skip a lot of the pages because we just don't use them. For example, the position page for the INS alignment, this is all simulated, but we don't use it. We never go there. So when you're on the line, you just go database, straight to flight plan, and you start going here. So if I'm skipping something in the FMS, it's not indicative of it not working. It's just indicative of we don't use that during normal line ops. The noise, that like spaceship sounding noise, is true to the 220 cockpit. It's kind of the normal noise that you hear on the airplane. It's this kind of electrical hum. It's very unique to the 220. All right, so we're going to start with the flight plan uplink. You can link your sim brief, and then the flight plan uplinks into the secondary. So you'll go secondary FMS, activate, execute, and it brings you back to active. For your flight number, you'll plug that in without any company information, just the number, okay? And then you can start plugging in the departures from there. Okay. Oh, Mike Roman says it does sound a bit weird on the stream. Someone said it sounds doubled up. Let me see. Let me try this here. How is that? Is that better for you guys? Let me know if that's better. Good. Okay, excellent. All right. Thanks for bearing with me, y'all. I'm a tech challenged, put it that way. Yes, Mickey, the real FMS is that responsive. There are some pages like the route page that are not, but yeah, overall this FMS is very accurate to the real box. We'll give ourselves 40 minutes to get off the gate here, so 11:47 goes in the estimated departure time window. For departures, we're going to take off a runway 28 right. It'll be an intersection departure, but the airplane, the 220, has no ability to put in a intersection takeoff. So, whereas some other tech challenge pilot flying a tech jet, what could go wrong? So, whereas the 7.3 and the A320 all have an ability to put in either a takeoff shift or an intersection point for departure, the 220 does not. It always assumes full length for your takeoff. So, if you do an intersection takeoff, there's nothing in the box that will indicate that, and it's on the flight crew to verify that their takeoff data that they received from the company and the intersection that they're taking off from are correct, because as far as the FMS is concerned, it doesn't care that you're doing an intersection takeoff, which is kind of surprising to me. The approach, we're going to do the expressway visual into runway 31 via vectors from MIP and ETG. That's all correct. So that gets put in there. For the alternate, I got to see what SimBrief gave us for an alternate. Philly at 220. So we're going to type KPHL, and here's where we find the first, or one of the first 220 isms, if you will, is that if you put 220 in here, like you would think, that's actually telling the jet that we're going to cruise over there at 220 feet. So in order to get 22,000, you have to either put F220 like that, or you can type out the entire number like that. But it's a fairly common issue for people transitioning the airplane when you're checking their work in the box, that they'll have a couple hundred feet into here as the alternate cruise altitude, and then they'll wonder why their fuel burn is all messed up. Mike Roma, you can also do FL220. So again, 220ism, there's 4 different ways to put in the cruise altitude, and the box will take all of them. So that page looks good. We'll go to winds and temps, and now you have to manually select your winds, and it uploads here. It takes the winds into account for fuel planning, but it does not take winds into account for VNAV, which can make descent planning a little bit of a challenge. So you want to make sure that your winds are uploaded here for fuel plan purposes, but if you have a tailwind, for example, on the descent, you've got to manually account for that by descending early or changing the descent angle. And we'll discuss that more as we get flying. Yeah, I was wondering how the MD-88 transplants did learning this thing. It's funny because that's where most of them came from, was MD-88. All right, fuel page. This is where we're going to get the load sheet involved. So our zero fuel weight is 104,860. 104,860. All right, we'll plug that in there. Typically, we don't have our zero fuel weight CG yet when we're sitting at the gate, so we'll leave that blank. Total number of passengers, 99. So the only thing this does is it kicks the air conditioning system into high flow above 100 people. That's the only thing that that's used for, but you can also reference it in an emergency. For block fuel, we'll come up here and insert our block fuel, which is 12.3. All right. Let's see, SimBrief gave us 340 pounds of taxi fuel. And then we do not put the reserve in here because it's only a %. You can't put a hard number in here. That's true to the real airplane, and so at my company, we just manually worry about our fuel reserve. And we look at the numbers down here. So this has us showing up at LaGuardia with 4.6, and I think it's nice weather out there. If not, it's the simulator, and we're going to make it nice weather. And then the alternate would be 3,500, which is about 500 pounds lower than I would like to be at the alternate. So real world, we'd probably get a little bit more gas. All right, performance page, performance departure. This will all be filled in once we receive our takeoff data, but we'll make sure that we're on an NADP departure profile, accelerating and reducing thrust at 1,000 feet. For the climb, 290.76, that's what we'll climb at. We'll cruise there at 300 or 0.79, like that. For the descent, we'll descend at 300.79 as well. This VPA to approach level, this is what I was talking about, where the VNAV doesn't take into account wind. So if you're nominally trying to descend on the 3-degree glide path and you have a 50-knot tailwind, the airplane's going to have a real hard time managing its speed going downhill. So as a technique, we'll put 2.5 degrees in. And then that way, if we have a kick and tailwind, the airplane will be able to deal with it. If we have a headwind, then we can come back in later and we can update this back to 3 degrees. But 2.5 is kind of your worst case scenario, so we can set that now and then come back to it later. Approach information, we'll look at this more in depth once we get to LaGuardia. And then we get to the route page. Southwest pilot, UNV1 just switched positions. Yeah, basically. Went from... I was the Boeing FO, he was the Airbus captain, and we just swapped. Let's see, for fixes, taking off out of Chicago, this is another cool thing about this airplane, is you can pull the charts up on the PFD, or sorry, on the ND. Although we don't have an actual departure out of here, so we're going to have to manually put it in. So GCO, I believe it's 5.5 DME. Above 3,000. Take a look here. Pull up charts. Ord. Navigraph token expired. Okay. Bear with me here. This doesn't want it. Log out and log in at settings. Okay. Log out and log in. Okay. And then we'll go here to charts, Ord, odd. Never had this issue before. Okay, well, it's going to be 5.5 and 7.5 DME for the climb restrictions out of Ord, I believe. So we'll put a 5.5 DME ring around GCO, and GCO. I think 7.5. Can somebody back me up? Can somebody back me up on the departure? The second departure ring. I think it's 7.5 miles on the O'Hare 7. or O'Hare 9. Not that it really matters. Yep, 8.5. Okay. So we'll come down here in the fix page and put an 8.5 DME ring. That's all set there. And we're good. All right. So this is the flight plan page. The fixes are in. And then the way we verify the fixes in real life is we'll go flight plan init on the captain side, route via 2 on the FO side, and we'll read the clearance to each other. No dents in the 220. Not sure what you're talking about. Engineered flight 5.5 at 3 and 8.5 at 4. Awesome, thank you. And then we'll put 5 up in the FCP here. All right, so we've got 5 in there. We're taking off runway 28. So we'll set that heading when we go Toga, and then we'll do set up the flight director here in a moment. All right, so we're taking off out of O'Hare to LaGuardia on runway 28 right. It's a vector departure. The first fix is mobile. We're going up. We're climbing via the SID up to 5,000 feet. We're squawking 2503, and we're expecting 390 in, say, 10 minutes. So that's good. Over here, mobile will be our first fix. That's fine. ETG and ETG, we can take these, put them on top of each other. So now it's Weevil ETG for the Min 4. We'll execute that. And now the route page is all cleaned up, and we can copy it to secondary in case FMS1 crashes. Now we'll set the FMS up for our performance data entry, which is going to be flight plan fuel and perf departure, and we are ready to go. All right, so we've done that. Once we've done the route verification, it's time for the pre-flight checklist. So we would brief our departure with the other crew member right after we did the departure check, or the departure verification, and then we've run the pre-flight checklist. So you'll come up here, the FO runs it. All of these items are sensed. So let's say, for example, the left cowl is in auto. Let's say that the last crew left it off. It will sense that on the checklist. The exhaust is currently not. There's a little bug in how the exhaust is sensed. So what you can do is you can go to override item, and it'll override the item that's not sensed. Alternate flap switch is in norm. That's also a small bug here, and we will override that as well. And then we come down to the items that we can manually check off here, right? So it's not the first fly of the day. The interior and exterior inspection is complete. Radios and transponder are all set. The flight control panel is set. What we're looking for there is that the FMS collar is, the speed collar is in FMS, and the altitude is set correctly, and the transfer arrow is pointing to the pilot flying. The heading will update when we turn the flight director on, so don't worry about the heading right now. Flight control panel is set. Flight nav instruments, setting up the map, and the PFD is kind of the big ticket items here. So we will set these up. Okay, and then the PFD up here, we'll check our messages. So that's down here. You can either hit the soft key or the messages hard key right there. Flight plan discontinuity, we know about that. Invalid speed use manual, we know that. That's because the engines are off right now. All right. So the flight nav instruments have been checked. The altimeters, we'll set those 2993. That's cross-checked. ICAS and info. We'll come over here. Door slide disarm. Door open. Cockpit door open. External powers in use. No PID. Seat belts. Auto brake RTO. Parking brake on. Nose wheel steering off. That's all things that we expect. We'll check the crew oxygen. Make sure it's above 1300 psi. That is all good. And then the info. If we had an info message, there'd be a flag right here, and we would check that on the info Synaptic page right here. So ICAS and info is checked. The rotor trim indicator is green. If it's out of center, it'll be white. But we want to make sure it's centered in green. So that's green. The circuit breakers have been checked. Side sticks, the calibration has been checked. The oxygen masks have been checked. It's just like the oxygen mask in every other airplane. Flight attendants have been briefed. Departure has been briefed. The logbook QRHs are on board, and fuel required. Sim brief said we needed 12.3. We've got 12.3. The pre-flight checklist is complete. Butter nips, is that specific to Delta customized pre-flight checklist? Yes, it is. Yep. All right, so we're going to fire up the APU, hold the switch for 3 seconds, and then let it back to run. And APU in start comes up on the iCast, and you can see on the status page the APU starts firing up. Got the APU door animated. You didn't brief the FAs, you lie. Can we get a captain's PA brief? Nope. Sure can. Alrighty. Echo 19 did the sound pack for the 220. There we go. All right, the APU is all spooled up, and now we have to check the electrical panel, or the electrical page. Make sure that the APU is up, providing power, which it is. We can disconnect the external power. This is a very important step. If you don't do that, you pull the external power, it'll cause cascading electrical failures, and Synaptic has modeled that. So one time during the beta test, I pushed back without disconnecting that, failed the DMC cabinet and a couple other electrical things. Wrote a bug report, and then we figured out that I had messed it up. So that's very important that you do that. External power is available. And now we can come and clean up all of our ground equipment. So we'll remove the GPU, remove the chocks, we'll get rid of the jet bridge. The doors close. So now we have all the doors closed, showing that they're green, and then the flight attendants should arm them here momentarily. There we go. Armed, 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 and armed. And at that point, the flight attendants will come shut us in. Close the bathroom door, and then close the flight deck door. All right. That message goes away, and now we can run a pushback check. So, pushback checklist is all sensed except for the flight deck door, which is closed and locked. And iCast info once more, and that is checked. Pushback check is complete. Now we'll get our performance data. Let's see. P. Crusoe, didn't watch the beginning. I know you fly the 7.3. You type rated on the 220. I actually moved from the 7.3 to the 220 about 6 months ago. So yes, I am typed on the 220. Flew it as an FO as well, and now I'm flying it as a captain. So takeoff performance, sync FMS, sync weather, and we'll check. Got our weight packs on, anti-ice off, thrust config automatic flap 2, which is the standard takeoff setting for the 220, and it's going to be a takeoff 2. And we'll actually do this correctly. So the zero fuel weight, the first thing we do is we go to the load sheet and we verify zero fuel weight is 104,860, which it is 104,860, and the zero fuel weight CG is 24.8. So we're going to 24.8 there. Execute that. The fuel planning numbers should still be correct, but you would take a look at those and update them. Climb thrust is not automatically sensed, so if you're below 135,000 pounds, it's going to be climb 2. We're going to do TO2. All right, TO2. That arms APR, so anything other than TO arms automatic power reserve, which essentially says that if you can a motor on takeoff at TO2, the other engine will automatically go up to full takeoff power and remove the derate. Flap to 2, bleed source is on the engines, anti-ice is off, and the speeds are 123, 129, and 134. So 23, 29, and 34. Synaptic have included the option to data link the takeoff data to the FMS, but in real life, we don't have that. We have to manually input the takeoff data just like this. So it's one of the complaints people have about the airplanes. You have to manually import all of this takeoff data into the airplane, and there's the possibility of introducing an error, but that's just the way that the airplane is set up. You'll hit set V speeds, which transfers the speeds to the PFD. Okay, and now that the V speeds are entered, we can hit the toga button. We would arm nav if it was a FMS-based departure, but it's a heading departure, so we're going to leave nav off, and we're going to arm VNav. So toga nav VNav is the call out. TO, VTO, and NADP will be armed down here if you have a if you're on a FMS departure. That should arm as well on a heading departure, and that's a known issue that's going to get corrected here in a hot fix. Heading going to be 285. So we can spin that around. To runway heading. Okay. Speed, heading, altitude, and finally trim. Stab trim nose down 4.0, so we're just going to run the trim down to 4.0 and ensure the rudder trim indicator is still green, and it is. We are ready to push back, finally. All right, so we would call for pushback clearance. We'd get that. The beacon comes on. The brake will be released, and we can start our pushback from the tablet. We'll go straight back. The outside model of this airplane is amazing. Tyson, morning/afternoon. Gonna have to bookmark this stream to rewatch once it releases. Yeah, 100%, man. We're hopefully going to do more streams with this airplane, as well as some more short-form tutorial content once I can get some time to record the pre-recorded stuff, for sure. All right, we're going to 2.8, so we're going to put the tail to the left. Yeah, Joe Plains, this is the Innie builds order. It's pretty good. All right, we're going to stop the pushback. Right on the road. Nice job. All right, parking brake is set. Clear disconnect. Thanks for the smooth push. All right, for engine start, we've been cleared to start. The trim air is going to come off. Trim air is good. And then the highly complex engine start procedure in this airplane. Classic Jet Sim Pilot, I probably missed it. Is there a way to verify the parking brakes have been set? A pressure reading somewhere? No, so they're actually, the brakes are electric on this aircraft. So this parking brake on note is the only thing that you've got. But there's no brake pressure because they're not hydraulic brakes. They're electric, and then they're mechanically held via the parking brake. Tej, can you isolate and ventilate this bad Larry? No. And that is one of the big problems, is that you can't manually control the air system, and so it gets really hot in the back during the fairly long engine start. So, Turk, I went to get my 220 type rating finished, and we just pushed. All right, here we go. We're getting into the highly technical, very difficult engine start on the Airbus 220. You take the engine start switch and turn it on. There is no step 2. The engine start takes a long time. It's about 2 minutes per engine. And you'll see a start flag. The engine spools up to 12.5. It's really between 11 and 13% N2. And it motors to make sure that the shaft, the compressor, and the turbines are on is straight, because the shaft has tendency to sag as it sits heat-soaked after an engine shutdown. So it spins the shaft at 12%, straightens out the shaft, the bowed rotor is kind of what they call it, And then once it senses that the shaft has been straightened out, it runs the N2 up, ignition kicks in, and it's a normal engine start from that point. Electric brakes, how very 787 of them. Yeah, the brakes work really good. The runway performance of the 220 is pretty incredible. Engine start from the cockpit is fairly quiet, and that's realistic. Okay. When the engine start is complete, the start flag goes away. The engines fill in all the Synaptic pages. So you'll see here this engine is filled in, this one's filled in. And now we can do the flow in between engine starts, which is verify whether the APU needs to be turned off or not. So we're starting an engine, so it's fine. So APU, PTU, anti-ice, not required, flaps, and ICAS. So we'll set the flaps to 2 and then start the other engine. I'm going to wait on the engine start just so I can show you the flap animation here. All right. And we'll start up number left. But you'll notice on the air page, there's, well, I guess it reconfigured there, but because we took so long. But on a normal engine start, the packs don't have time to reconfigure, and so it gets pretty warm in the back. Hear the PTU running. JJ Stevens, do you guys ever dual engine start, or can you? We do not. I have heard rumors that the airplane was designed to do engine starts 2 at once, but I don't know that for sure. Do you single engine taxi in real life? No, we are not allowed to single engine taxi right now because of some air system issues with the way that the airplane reconfigures the bleeds. We have to start both motors prior to taxiing. Do the flaps go out and down? Dude, the flap model on this airplane is amazing. It looks like the real thing. You can see the little door and the push rod and the outside flap fairing. And I'll do this engine start from up here so that you can see the signs of a completed start, which is the start flag goes away and this engine will fill in on the Synaptic page. All right, good start on there. Now, if we wait too long, ding. All right, so FMS perf departure. The reason that's dinging us is because we told the airplane that we were going to use the engines for the bleed source for takeoff, but we have the APU running, and the APU defaults to the bleed source. So the mark of a good A220 FO is getting the APU off fast enough that that message doesn't populate after engine start. So again, we're going to do the same flow. So APU, PTU, anti-ice not required. Check the flaps and check the ICAS. Okay, and we'll do an after start check. Anti-ice is auto. We're not single engine taxiing. ICAS info is checked. Oil temp needs to warm up on the left engine before we take off. It needs to be 50 degrees before we take off. So the after start check is complete. Then the captain will say salute, receive, flap, and then call the flap setting. So in this case, flap 2. Turn the nose wheel steering on, and we can call for taxi. Once the air system has stabilized, the APU bleed is shut off and the engines are supplying air to the respective packs, you can turn the trim air system back on. And another limitation with the airplane, until you have green airlines coming off of each engine, you're not allowed to move the throttles. Because the geared Pratt & Whitney engine has a tendency to compressor stall and damage itself if you accelerate the engine without a bleed load. So very important to verify 2 green bleed lines, trim air's off, now you can move the throttles and we can get out of here. All right, taxi lights on, parking brake coming off, here we go. The airplane will roll at idle, which Synaptic model, this is about the speed that the airplane will taxi out at idle. We'll get rolling at. Alright, and we'll do a flight control check, so the FO can bring up the flight controls on his side. We'll go pull up, pull down, left, and right. Alright, then we'll check that as well for the wing view, just so you can see the detail under these spoilers. Never had that on ours. PW 1100 sounds like a skill issue. Really? The Neo, the Airbus Neos didn't have that issue? I thought that was all Neos. All right, let's do a taxi check. Flaps are 2 and 2. Takeoff speeds, we got 23, 29, 34. Thrust is TO2. Trim is 4.0 with a green rudder trim, and the flight controls have been checked. Taxi check is complete. Did we call metering? Sure did. All right, so the whale howl. Here we go. In real life, that noise actually kind of scares passengers, and so I do my best to not make it howl on taxi out. But in the sim, the feel on the tiller and the rudder pedals is pretty good for a flight sim add-on. The tiller response feels pretty good. Yeah, it shakes the overhead bins in the back. P1 says we had a phase where the IAEs would have a tendency to flame out with no bleed demand on idle descent. Software fix. Yeah, sick. Real nice engine you got here. Okay, we're gonna do Echo Echo is kind of our normal departure. So we'll do an intersection takeoff from here. All right. We would call the flight attendants, they would call back, say that they're good, a ready flag would pop up here, we would check our min fuel for takeoff, we've got that, arm the auto throttles, thrust arm before takeoff checklist. Alright, and it's a heading departure with 3,000, 4,000, and 5,000 as the altitude wickets. Alright, before takeoff checklist, runway position, this is important in this airplane because remember the FMS does not give you any departure shift information, so we're going to taxi onto the runway and stop. Runway position, we got 28 right at Echo Echo outside, and then we would make sure that we had 28 right Echo Echo numbers inside. Flap 2 and 2. Nav briefing, that's complete. Flight attendants notified and acknowledged the auto throttle is armed. Rudder trim indicator, green. And the ICAS and info is checked. Before takeoff check is complete. The FO has some cleanup items to do that we'll discuss here once we get into position. Am I using a Blackbird tiller? I am using a Blackbird tiller, but I have not gotten the 220 add-on yet, so I'm going to change my 777 handle to a 220 ASAP. All right, parking brake on. Map comes up over here. We're going to select terrain. The FO also selects terrain with the big map. They stack the CAS, so check parking brake on, that we know about that. No PED, seatbelt, and auto brake RTO, we know about all those, so we're going to stack the CAS. so that anything new will populate there, and the auto throttle is armed. We'll light it up, and we are ready to go. So we should put whales in chat. Catch up here. Night flight hitting the garbage is going to be sweet. All right, here we go. Here we go. I know we took a long time. We're doing OE. All right, run it up to 55%, which is kind of putting the thrust carrots next to the EGT limit. All right, there we go. And throttle up. Just push the throttles up. The auto throttle intercepts it. You'll see that full thrust is not commanded immediately. This is TLLS, thrust limiting at low speed. The airplane will gradually wind the throttles up until it reaches full power at 80 knots. Alright, 80 knots, throttle hold, thrust normal. V1. V1. Rotate. Nice and smooth. Put the flight director bars into the pitch target markers. Disregard the FPA for now. Alright. Takes a forward pressure on the yoke to stop the rotation. That's accurate. Landing your handle up outside. Those big nose gear doors opening up. Alright, we're out of there. Spoiler mismatch, that's my my Bravo setup. Alright. VTO, gonna go FLC. That is a known issue right now, just because we're not on a SID, and we're gonna run this up to 210 knots. I'm gonna put the autopilot on. All right, and then we'll turn out of here in heading mode. Simulator turn to the north. No air normally gives you. We'll keep it climbing up to 15,000. All right. Hand flies very smooth. I'll show you later. Here comes flap 1. Do the Bravo autopilot controls not work with the 220? I don't know if they do. I also on stream want to interact with the actual flight control panel, just so that for tutorial purposes people can see what I'm pressing. All right, flap 0. Here come the slats. Okay. After takeoff checklist. After takeoff check is complete. And that's all you hear. You say after takeoff checklist and you hear nothing, and then after takeoff checklist complete. All right, we're going to turn out to the east now, rather. About 090. Good technique is to keep spinning your manual speed bug up to match FMS speed, so we'll put it at 250. Teach, you guys don't do the wait till 20 knots thing that B6 does. That is, for us, a tailwind only technique. So if you have a tailwind on takeoff, then you run it. What he's talking about is there's a procedure where you run the engines up to 55%, release the brakes, and then at 20 knots of ground speed, push the throttles up to tow power. We do that, but we only do it if we're taking off with a tailwind. I believe JetBlue does it all the time. 75 minutes reporting to departure in order for Elizabeth. All right. Wing flex is modeled. The external model looks very, very good. Hopefully we get up into some sunlight so you can see the texturing. All right. Our departure restrictions are no problem. Turk, it's going to need Boris, Chief. I believe that the sounds are going to get a little bit of love. It's an issue of just getting more samples from actual 220s. Aviation Bros, thank you for the $2 super chat, my man. A220, glad to see you back streaming. As am I. It's good to be back. I missed doing this. There we go, a little bit of a breakout. Look at that. All right. In between layers here. The airplane's going to accelerate to 290, but turbulence penetration speed is 280, so we're going to put the man speed mode to 280. That way, if we hit some moderate turbulence, we can just snap the speed color over to manual, and the airplane will decelerate to turbulence penetration speed. 10,000 feet, it'll automatically accelerate to 290. All right. There it is, 290. Airplane pitches over to accelerate. We can go direct to mobile. A couple ways of doing this. You can open the direct to menu, direct to mobile, execute, and nav it up. There's FMS1 to mobile. And we'll sync the heading by pushing the knob. Now the airplane automatically syncs the heading. Oh, look at that breakout, chat. Drop a like in the stream for that. Yeah, how's that? Look at that. Cloud surfing in a modern jet. Hashtag real life, trademarked by V16. Joe Planes at departures yelling at you for not maintaining 250 till advised. So true. That's true. I actually didn't look at the departure plate because my nav graph was acting up, so maybe I missed that. Moderator Turk is wielding the mute hammer here. There goes downtown Chicago underneath. Look at the animations on these fan plates. Got those big high bypass fans. Ethan, it's $66 from the Microsoft Marketplace. It's only on Marketplace, I believe, for a month, and then it'll be available via the Indie Builds Manager. Will it be coming to Xbox? I don't know. Mike, you still in the chat? We had one of the dev team in the chat, Mike Roma. If he's not in the chat, I will ask and get back to you. All right, we're going to put the altitude all the way up to 390. Just climb all the way up. There we go, 39. Did they post a release date? I think it's next week, but I'm not 100% certain. I can tell you that the release version has been pushed, and so now it's just a matter of Microsoft doing the in-docking. So, Virtual Flight Diaries with a $10 super chat, my man. Hey, look who it is. Welcome back, Copal as well, dude. Everything is amazing. I appreciate all the support, guys. It means a lot that. After 6 months, the Discord was still active. People are still tuning in for a live stream. It means a lot. I really appreciate the support, guys. Everything's good, just busy. That busy season of life, right? Took the junior upgrade, flying a lot. Don't have much control over my schedule, so. But good problems to have. Thankful to be able to do something I love doing for a living. So, not going to hear me complaining. Blurry Sword, Indy was saying the 31st, maybe wrong. Okay, I don't know. You guys would know better than me. I'm just on the test team, but I don't know when the actual release date's going to be. But it is going to be soon because version 1.0 has been pushed, and the team is now switching focuses to smashing any bugs that will present themselves on release. release and get a hot fix out for people who may have issues. But yeah, 1.0 has been released. So. All right. So as we climb through 18, we can go ahead and do the wing anti-ice check. So on the first flight of the day, you've got to turn the wing anti-ice on for 3 minutes. So we'll start doing that. You got to wait until the temperature is below 15 C to do it, which is why we waited until this long. The LNAV sim in this airplane is I think one of the best in the sim, and we're gonna see that going into LaGuardia on the expressway visual. It does a really good job. Mary, congrats on the upgrade. Thank you, appreciate that. We've got amber in the barrow because we're above 18, so there's standard for me, standard for V1. We're going to go wings off, taxis off, landing lights off. Forgot to dig the flight attendants through 10 because I was looking at the scenery. And we're going to go checklist, climb check, altimeters, standard cross check, wing anti-ice check in progress. So we're going to leave the checklist open until the wing anti-ice check is complete. Caps, hello, thanks for the stream. How hard is it to change from an A320 to the A220? A220 is like Boeing, I've heard. The 220 is, we'll talk about some of the airplane history and stream once we're in cruise, but it's not really like either, to be honest with you, because I flew the 737 and it's not like Boeing, but it's also certainly not like Airbus. The throttles move. The FMS is basically a business jet FMS, so I don't know that you can compare it to a 7.3 or a 320. It's just different. It's probably closest to a CRJ, to be honest with you. Michael Valentine, what made you want to change from the 7.3 to the 220? I actually didn't want to go back to the 220 because I kind of like the old school. I mean, if you can call a next generation 737 old school. I kind of like the old school vibe of the 7.3, but I was ready to upgrade to captain, and the 220 was the junior airplane that allowed me to do that. So that's why I came back to it. And it's a good flying airplane. I mean, now that I'm back on it, I enjoy the airplane, so I can't complain about that. Are there detents on the throttle? No, there are not. So it's just smooth range of motion, just like a Boeing. But you cannot override the auto throttles. So the only way to override the auto throttles, if you move them, it disconnects the auto throttle and gives you an all warning. There's not a way to kind of pull them to idle or push them up a little bit like in a Boeing and then let go, and then the auto throttle brings them back again. Yeah, you can't do that in this. All right, there's 3 minutes on the anti-ice. Finish the chrono, back to auto for the wings, and wing anti-ice check complete, climb check complete. Have you flown into the A in prior flights? Not sure what you're asking there, Mortis. Does the tray table work? It do. Here's our little wish.com tray table. So the keyboard is very well modeled, and it was a design choice to keep the keyboard in here because that's originally what the tray table was for a keyboard. But this keyboard runs a built-in tablet that would live right here. And to my knowledge, nobody actually bought this tablet, so nobody actually has the keyboard. So what we typically do is we keep this metal flap closed and just use this like a little tray table. Have you flown into Atlanta? Yeah, I've flown into Atlanta a couple times. It's busy, but it functions pretty smooth. There we go. Keep the messages cast. And you'll see the airplane's climbing right around 1,000 feet a minute. That's pretty accurate at most weights. The turbofans are a beast down low, but once you get up to the 20s and 30s, they kind of peter out a little bit as far as power goes. My regional mind sees that spot for the keyboard and thinks graffiti spot. Dude, so the keyboard actually, this area for the keyboard is actually a tray, like it's recessed, and so yeah, you can put snacks in here. You can leave snacks for the next pilots. You can put napkins or something. I found stickers in here, like that haven't been stuck, just like free stickers to take in here. So it's kind of a little treasure chest. Is this usable in VR? Specifically the mouse cursor on the screen. We had some testers who tested in VR. I was not one of them, but I'm gonna say yes, because we had testers in VR who didn't have a problem. So can't speak via personal experience, but I'm pretty sure that the answer is yes. Put up our sunshades, which these are just like the real airplane, and then the real airplane also has this Wish.com sun visor here. 99% of the people who fly this airplane have their own sun visors that they bring, because the stock ones are not. They don't cut it. The big windows. There we go. But I don't know about you guys, but that it's a pretty good looking flight deck right there. Bombardier actually won some design awards for the wing as far as efficiency and construction methods. So it's a pretty high tech wing for an airliner. Should we go explore the cabin? Looks like it came straight out of a business jet. Yeah, I mean, it kind of did, to be honest with you. Oh, well, yeah, we turned the lights off. So some other stuff. Jump seat back here. Thermal circuit breakers. We covered that. The maintenance switch right here. So to update your nav data, you actually have to go through the same process as the real airplane, and you have to take this maintenance switch, cycle it to maintenance, and then dive into the FMS database page and change the nav data. So it's a little involved, but it is a sim of kind of the real aircraft. So that is pretty cool. All right, we'll take a look at the bathroom here. So this is real life, where you have to sequence the doors. Got the sink in the lab. Toilet flushes when you close the lid. Maybe changing tables inoperative for you dads out there. Yeah, the windows, can you also update nav data by hitting update? No. No, you've got to do it the actual way. But it's pretty straightforward once you have done it a couple times. The 220 in real life, the windows are actually a lot bigger than your typical airliner. They were able to do that with the composite construction. So the windows are bigger than your typical airliner. They also have the shades work. You can also get your tray table. You can have your 4 Cokes on your cross country. There we go. Soy Sauce, has ATC called you a C-Series ever? In the U.S. where I fly, the only place that does that is Minneapolis, and they do it all the time. Minneapolis just calls you a C-Series. Everyone else usually calls us a Boeing. 2x3 seating. Everyone complains in the real airplane because the bins on this side are smaller than the bins on this side, so the right side bins always fill up first. Yeah, so dwarves, it's nuts. Every single tray table is functional. Alright, and then this is the coolest part of the airplane in real life. The crapper in the back has a window. So you can look out at Kansas while you do your business. See the horizontal stab back there? Got a fully modeled galley back here. I think the airplane was modeled off of the Korean Air galley, or the Korean Air cabin, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Anything but no release in 2025. Yep, but it's coming down. It's 2026. She'll be releasing here in probably a week, I think. Check out the dirt streaks on the spoilers here. Mr. Anderson himself, thank you for the $2 super chat, man. I appreciate you dropping by. Excited for the bird. Thanks for the stream. No worries, man. We're gonna do more tutorial style streams once I get my setup figured out again where I can record videos. There we go. All right, we're back. Guessing release on Friday or midweek. I'm not entirely sure. I don't want to comment and get everybody excited and then not be able to back it up here. I'm going to go full climb power just to try and get some cruise altitude a little faster. I don't know exactly. I know that the release candidate has been pushed, but we'll also climb at 280. But I don't know the exact date it'll be available. That's realistic, by the way. That immediate pitch up when you go man speed, if the speed's slower. So in the real airplane, we would do that differently to avoid that. Matter of fact, I'll show you the technique. So for heading departure, you don't need to click the heading button before takeoff. That's correct, Camry. You click the heading button at 400 feet because it's in TO, which goes straight out runway heading until you hit heading at 400 feet, and then you'll intercept the heading. Yeah. All right. Let's see. So we're going to go back to FMS speed, and I'll show you how to smoothly do what I just did. Diabetic Lad, how's the left seat been treating you so far? It's good, man. I'm learning a lot. Coming from a single seat fighter background, there's a lot of nuance to flying a multi-crew airliner that I'm learning on the road, and I may be one that I've been talking about doing a joint podcast. So if we end up doing that, I'll tell some of those stories on there. But it's been good, man. I really enjoy it. It's a new challenge. So the way to do that, what I just did correctly, would be sync up the FMS speed and the manual speed like this, flip it to manual speed, and then gradually roll it down like that. And the airplane will much smoother intercept the manual speed as opposed to just, parking the nose up like it did the first time I did it. The FMS does calculate best climb rate and angle speeds. So 204 knots for max angle and 209 knots for best rate, which I'd buy that. You don't generally get that slow, but you can pull it back to 7.0 or something to climb faster. And this is something that if ATC needs a best rate up, we'll do. Orion Vic, didn't Airbus say they were not continuing the window in the aft lab for the 220? I don't know. I don't know if they are or not. I thought that was mainly operator chosen, you know, by the individual cabin that the operator chooses, but I don't know. I can see why Airbus would want to discontinue it because, you know, it's weight. It's always lighter to have just a fuselage skin there. So maybe they want to get rid of it. Boy, how realistic is the MFD compared to IRL? Looks realistic. It is spot on. So these displays, matter of fact, I took a picture of these displays and sent them to my buddy, and he didn't know it was a simulator. It's very, very, I mean, it's just very accurate as far as the look and the how they interact. You know, the cursors, you know, they look correct. Yeah, it's amazing. The terrain map, you know, the fact that you can kill the terrain, turn the terrain on, kill the BSD, you can go to plan mode, move the display. The fact that it goes black when you pan is correct. Yeah, they're very, very realistically modeled. The FMS is good. There are some things that are to be done. Let's see. We'll go through it. So the database page, this is all done correctly. Search and defaults pages are all done correctly. The position, these pages, I believe that they're done correctly, but I haven't actually looked at them in the real airplane ever. So, you know, we don't use the RAIM calculator in our airplanes. We have a dispatch does that for us. So, so the position tab is all done. The flight plan page is all complete. This is 100% modeled. Winds and temps are 100% modeled. The fuel page is 100% modeled. There are some issues with the time to go calculation, and that is 35,000 feet. We have a high altitude climb check where we have to turn the wing anti-ice off. So high altitude climb check is complete. We'll talk about that in a second. But the fuel page is very complete. Equal time point is not simulated currently, but we also don't use this page in real life, so I've never used this in the actual jet. Takeoff performance page, this is spot on. The climb, cruise, and descent pages are good. They're modeled right. There's a data block here in the real airplane that has basically like your current airspeed, current ground speed, time to go, things like that. That's down here, and the team is working on building that, so that's to come. And that's on the climb, cruise, and descent page. This is a fun fact. So the sim brief actually filed us too high, which is probably why we're having trouble getting up here. This cruise altitude, optimal, and max altitude block is in the airplane. It's modeled. It's modeled by Synaptic the same way it is in the real airplane, and you're not allowed to use it because the real airplane has trouble getting up to the max altitude, which you can see. The only way I was able to get up to 39 was by putting it into man speed, slowing it way down to basically green dot. Actually, a little slower than green dot. I don't want to be this slow. 0.7. And so this information is present in the actual airplane and is useless. So if you try to go to the optimal altitude or the max altitude in the real airplane, it won't do it, or it'll be climbing very, very slow, kind of struggling like we are right now. So that's done correctly. The descent page is modeled correctly. It only uses VPA right now, vertical path angle, but that's the only one that my company uses anyway. The arrival page is all simulated. routes page. This is simulated. The fix info page is simulated. You saw that on departure at Chicago. Yeah, it's modeled well. The fuel option for the page, it's pretty complete. If you're not typed in the 220, it will feel almost 100% complete. If you are typed in the 220, you will notice a couple things that are missing that you never use in real life. That being said, the Synaptic guys, like I said, they're very open to adding features, right? And so the FMS is going to have more features added to it as the sim is developed. So I'd say overall it's a very complete FMS simulation of the 220. Like from point A to point B flying, there's nothing in here that I go, oh man, I wish it simulated this. It covers all of the day-to-day functions that I use in the real airplane. Hopefully that was not too long of an answer to your question. There it is. Vodka, no weather. Yeah, there's no weather. It would be right here overlaid, but we don't have weather. And my understanding is that's due to just the API that Azobo uses. What's normal cruise speed for the BCS-3? So ideally 300 knots or 0.79 is what we try to cruise at. It's a very hard riding airplane though. The wing is very stiff. So actually you might see this. Yeah, Voy, I have the utmost confidence in the Synaptic team. This is not going to be a buy it on day one and it never gets an update airplane. This is going to be a consistently updated and perfected airplane for a while for us because the devs are really passionate about getting it right. So this wing is all composite, and it's very stiff compared to like a 737 wing. So the airplane rides really hard. So if you hit turbulence that you would just cut through in 737, it's pretty uncomfortable in the C series or the 220. So turbulence speed is 7.5 Mach, and so a lot of times you'll end up cruising around at 7.5 Mach if you're hitting bumps, and that's just so that, for passenger comfort. Now that we're up in cruise, I'm going to put the thrust back to auto. So between 7.5 and 7.9 is your answer. That's in the U.S. In Europe, I think they probably err more on the side of fuel savings. Road pilot for real, are you going to do some tutorials for the 220? I am. Yeah, I plan on doing some tutorials, but I just time, right? Time is the constant battle. So when I can get some time, then we'll make some hopefully shorter form than this. I thought I saw someone asking why JetBlue taxis single engine. They have some SOPs that they use that allow them to taxi single engine. They're not complex, but there's a different course of action for every situation, right? So if you're going to taxi out 2-engine, is different than if you're going to taxi out single engine, is different than if you're going to taxi out 2-engine with an APU takeoff, or 2-engine with or single engine with the APU for takeoff. So our company was just said, hey, let's simplify it and just do it the same way every time. And then once we figure out a software update that makes the engines less sensitive to the off-bleed stalls, then we'll get single engine taxi back. Because the reality is that once you compressor stall one engine, you've destroyed, months of fuel savings from single engine taxiing because the engines are so expensive. So, the mindset was, do we damage $1 million engine, or do we just burn a little bit of extra gas taxiing out? And the engines don't burn much fuel at idle, so. What's your normal cruise since you can't use optimal cruise? We have performance charts. We actually have to go into the into the performance charts and read them private pilot style and find our max cruise altitude. But it usually ends up being about 2,000 to 4,000 feet below the optimum in the FMS. Albert Whiskey, do we know if a HUD is coming? I believe, I don't want to speak out of turn because I'm not a dev, but I believe the HUD, the 100, and the steep approach kit are all going to come together as a paid add-on to the 300. Don't quote me on that. If Mike Rome was in the chat, he can correct me. Or if any of the devs are in chat, they can correct me, but I believe that was the plan. Butternibs, we used to sing Legend Taxi. Very recently we got a notice that it was temporarily banned due to guidance from Pratt. Yeah, so I don't know who Butternibs flies for, but yeah, it sounds like a lot of companies just figure, hey, we'll prioritize saving the engines over fuel savings from singing Legend Taxi. Now, it would be nice to sing Legend Taxi because the airplane taxis so fast at idle that you constantly are pressing the brakes to slow it down, and you end up wearing out the brakes early. So it would be nice if taxi sing Legend, because then you wouldn't have to use as much brake to slow the airplane down to stay below 30 knots. So once we can get it, that would be nice. Like chop ahead, I've heard the real jet has a lot of power-up computer issues. Is that true? It used to be more true. We've gotten better. The jet has some software fixes, and the operators have also figured out better ways to kind of manage the airplane. So it's much less finicky now than it used to be, but it is still an electrically sensitive airplane, yeah. So, like I said, turn the batteries on, run the electrical power on checklist, and then just wait 8 minutes before you touch anything. If the flight attendants are not familiar with the airplane, you've got to say, hey, don't do any PAs, don't adjust the lights, don't turn the seat, for the pilots, don't turn the seatbelt sign on, don't touch anything for about 10 minutes after putting electrical power on the airplane, because all the computers have to boot up. And the problem is, if you get a bad boot up on a computer, the only solution is just bring the whole thing down and then bring it back up again. So it's more electrically sensitive than anything else so far, that's for sure. Are cabin temps dynamic and affected by outside temp? I don't know. They are dynamic in that you can change them. So let's go to the air page. So currently, the cockpit's 74. So the blue is the commanded temp, the white is the actual temp, and you can change it. See there, will start to come down. I don't know how in-depth the cabin temperature simulation is. I will say that the real jet, and one of the nice things compared to the Guppy is the flight attendants on their flight attendant panel have the ability to adjust the temperature, I believe 5 degrees either side of whatever the cockpit has set. So, like if I set the cabin at 70, which is what I've got it commanded right now, the flight attendants can bring it either up to 75 or down to 65. And so, and they can do that in the back without telling us. So the nice part is we just typically set 75 in the back, and the flight attendants run the cabin temp. So, as opposed to on the 7.3 where, especially as an FO in the 7.3, half your job is HVAC specialist. In the 220, I never think about the cabin temp. And if a flight attendant calls up and says, hey, the cabin's the wrong temperature, then that's kind of the sign of, oh, you're new on the airplane. Or you got a bad electrical boot up and that functionality is not working for you. But, most of the time, these just go to 12 o'clock and stay at 12 o'clock. Pirate's discretion, can you show us the hydraulic page? I can. And we put these back to neutral. Hydraulic. There you go. Zoom in for you. Wavelength, can you turn on noise canceling in the EFB? Yeah, let me give it a shot here. There we go. You guys like that better? Yeah, so there's the hydraulic page. 1A and 2A are the engine-driven pumps. 3A and 3B are electric pumps. And then the PTU is... There's logic associated with PTU. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but I know, when you're landing, the PTU is generally on. I think it's gear down, flap 4 or 5. The PTU runs constantly. Or you can manually turn it on with the switch. The map has some interesting functions. So let's say, and to be honest with you, I don't use the full functionality of the map in the real airplane either, but if we go here to airports, so let's say that you had an emergency and you wanted to find your nearest airport, you could select YNG info. It's Youngstown Warren Regional. 1432, 9,000 feet long in the airport elevation. So it gives you very quick access to information about the airports graphically that you can, find. You can edit your flight plan graphically. You can go direct to Pitt. I'm not going to do it right now, but you could go direct to Pittsburgh if you wanted to. So. We're, I think, getting actually closer than I thought here. About an hour out. So we're going to get the, we're going to check the FMS out. Now, in the real airplane, we use an iPad, but there's something you can do that's kind of neat on the FO's display here. Just shows you how kind of useful all the displays are here in this airplane. So we're going to go on the left side of the multi-function. So this is two different windows, and you can control which one you're using by left and right. So on the right multifunction window, we're going to put the FMS. And on the left multifunction window, we're going to put the charts. And I forgot to do this before the sim. So that should be good. There we go. So LGA, we're on the Milton 4 arrival. That's going to pull that up from ETG. And then on the FMS side, we'll pull up the root legs page. And so now we can check all of our data right here in one screen without having to, keep looking over to an iPad or something. So ETG right here. How about now? Voice any better? My mic came away from my lips there. All right, so ETG, Milton, MIP, Mark is at 180. So we're going to put Mark, and again, a couple ways you can do this. You can do it, and I'll show you all of them. So you can do it Boeing style, where you go 180. V1's got the coffee shakes here. He hasn't had his coffee in a while. So MIP, or no, Mark at 180. So we'll just put that there. Mark at 180, execute. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it, Biley at 13, you can go to the snowflake. You can go crossing. And you want to be at 13,000. Type it in there, execute. Violet at 13. That's the A220 preferred way, is the snowflake. And then Beauty at 10. So we'll do this. And then the other thing about that is you can go crossing at 10, and you can go, remember, F100, right? And that'll say 10,000 feet as well. Just different format. So Beauty at 10. It's not a coffee shake, it's from having 4 kids. All right, so we've got all of that checked. That's all in the box. So that's excellent. We will descend at 0.79, 300, 2.5 degree descent angle. Okay, we're going to check the approach now. The Grumpy Gamer, howdy, just got home from watching the Breeze 220 land at our local airport. Awesome. Yeah, Breeze has a beautiful livery. I've never flown on them, but I've heard good things. All right, so we're doing the expressway visual, or I guess the RNAV X-Ray 3.1 now. Gacker is the final approach fix. We need to be 165 by Gacker. And so we're going to put that in the fix page. Put a 15 DME ring around it, and then we're going to put a 10 DME ring around it. Same deceleration wickets that we used in the 7.3, 210 at 15 and 180 at 10. Works just as well for the 220. Okay, so we've got our fixed rings. LNAV MDA is 1160. We're going to add 50 feet to that and put it in the baro. So we're going to go Tune Menu, PFD Nav, Baro. And if you notice, each CTP is synced to the other PFD. So this is true to the real airplane. It's not like a 7.3 where the FO sets up his stuff and the captain does his own homework, and then you have to compare. It's all linked together. So like if the FO sets his minimums over here at 1210. Then correctly it's set Baro 1210 on both sides. So that's done. Don't exceed 165 knots to runway 31. Okay, that's all good. We're going to use manual brakes. I'll explain why here in a second. All right, so the chart is done. Oh, now we can also check if we go to the perf arrival data tab. This is where we're going to verify that we're trying to shoot an RNP approach. So it's in RNP mode. Glide slope path references Baro. Runway threshold's at 7 feet. And that all looks good. Okay, so we verified that. We'll bug the approach speeds. We'll do flap 5, full flaps in. We're going to use the auto throttles for the approach. So we're going to use a 5-knot additive to VREF. We'll set the V speeds. We're below the max landing weight of 127,500 pounds. So that's no problem. So we built it in the waypoints. We bugged it twice. We'll do manual auto brakes, or manual brakes rather. And that's pretty much it. So we're set. And now we can come up here and just go back to map on both sides. And see, we'll zoom the range out a little bit, and we're about 100 miles out from the top of the descent, so that's not bad. All right. The Grumpy Gamer, new here, just subscribe. Thanks for the subscribe, man. I appreciate it. Larry Likes Trucks. When does this release? Next week. I'm not entirely sure the day, but it's been submitted to Microsoft, and now it's just over to their intake process. I guess AJ this week. It's Sunday, right? LGA taxi stream when? Well, we're going to LGA now, so we're probably going to end up taxiing for a little while there. I'm going to go outside for a second. We'll lower the volume down. Actually, let me know that volume is for you. If you want it lower, we'll drop it down. Let me know how that is. Pro did not lower the volume. I got there eventually. Okay. Please bring it down to 0. Rip headphone users. You're not here for the production quality at full flap sim. Put it that way. Jack M, what is the button below the load button next to the comm panel? It has a racetrack symbol. Let's see. Oh, this guy? I believe that's a refresh key, and that's for CPDLC. Full tinnitus sim sub-channel win. Yeah. But I mean, you can look at the visual model. I mean, it's very, very, very well done. And unlike some add-ons, I think that the dirt and weathering is actually appropriate. You know, you've got some dirt streaks behind the main gear, but it's not overdone. I didn't show you on stream. We can take a look at it when we land, but you can open the fan cowls. You can open the fan cowls up, the APU access hatches. There's a lot of external Easter eggs modeled on the model that you can kind of look at on your pre-flight. It is a good looking jet. That's for certain in real life and in the sim. PWK, also new here. You sold me on the A220 Comanche and the Black Square Bonanza. Dude, awesome. That's great, dude. I love both of those airplanes. General aviation is near and dear to my heart, and I think Black Square and A2A have kind of cornered the market on full fidelity general aviation airplanes. So glad you're having fun with them. I need to pick up the Black Square Commander when it releases. I'm really excited about that. How many hours? Let's see. How the FPS compare? Well, let's look. So now, granted, I'm on a kind of a beast of a machine, and this is frame gen. So we're up at cruise on a 5090, and we're doing 80 frames a second. But which is what, about 42 frames a second. But I also have the sim turned up to ultra on everything. So if there's a setting in the sim, it's on ultra. And I'm also streaming. I've got 3 displays of the stream up right now that my GPU is running, so performance will be better than you're seeing on stream, just because your PC won't be running the same amount of stuff in the background. How many hours do you have on the 220 in real life? And is that primarily the 200 and the 220-300? I've got about 1,000 hours at this point. Maybe a little under, maybe 900. Primarily in the 300, but I have flown the 100. The main gear looks like a 737. Yeah, it does, the way it doesn't have any doors. Yeah. Yeah, the 3D modeling is very good. The displays are very good. And the nice thing, I think, too, is the devs have not, they're not they're not trying to hide anything. They're not trying to hide any bugs. I've been very open about things that are not simulated or that are planned for future development, right? So like the NADP on departure, there's some small things that you can expect a bug fix for, and then also planned future growth that the team is already talking about. So, at some point you have to release the aircraft so that everybody can enjoy it, and that's what they've done. They've said, hey, we're going to draw the line in the sand here. We're going to release the aircraft as it currently stands to allow the community to start flying it and interacting with it and enjoying it. Also, you expand the the amount of machines and software and stuff that are running it, so it'll also kind of pressure test the product a little bit more, and then they're going to go to work with patches and hot fixes and even more improvements. So um, I think the airplane is going to be very very well supported for a while, and it's just going to get better from here, and it's very good as it is. Um, Diabetic Lad, what's my preference between the 300 and the 100? Unlike a lot of airplanes, you can't really tell a difference. So the 7.3, for example, the 800 and the 900 flew differently. Um, the um, the 100 and the 300, they don't. The only difference is the 100's max landing weight is very low. It's 115,000 pounds, and so you end up, if you need an alternate sometimes, you can be driven to landing with a fairly low fuel state in the 100. So I probably prefer the 300 just from that perspective. But as far as how they fly, they're the same. Cruise Hawks Aviator, no, because the 100 has smaller engines, so it doesn't feel any more powerful. Mainzy, allow the community to test it, go on and say it. I don't think that's fair, and I'm not glazing here, but the reason I say that is because I was on the testing team for this, and we tested this airplane for hours. It's got hundreds. When you're talking spread over all the devs, you're probably talking thousands of hours of testing on it. And we were hard on the devs, and they responded. They would fix stuff immediately for us. So it's been tested. It's been tested to the max extent that I think you can test in a small user base, right? Because any can only hire so many beta testers. Synaptic can only hire so many beta testers. And so at some point you release it, and it's not necessarily testing it on the consumer. It's just the nature of PC games is that when you release it to the public, you're going to find stuff that the testing team didn't. So simmers will do things that I didn't think to do. And so I don't think it's, they're not beta testing it on the consumer. It's just you expect bugs in this job. It shouldn't be too buggy. It's a pretty solid airplane. At least it has been for me. So first flight with this will be from Zurich to the Canary Islands. That'll be a great flight. Vincent, why is the wing anti-ice off above 35,000? That is because there is a overheat sensor, and I'm gonna here real quick. We gotta get ready for the descent. So it is like a Boeing in that it will descend on its own. So we're gonna put the altitude selector down to 10,000 feet, which is the bottom. V alt, V path is arm. Top of descent's out in front of us. We are good to go. The wing anti-ice goes off because there's I think it's a bleed sensor that is, it doesn't get enough cooling air above 35,000 feet because the air density goes down, and so it can trigger a false wing bleed duct overheat, which you obviously don't want because you would think the wing's on fire, and so you turn the wing anti-ice off to avoid putting any kind of any bleed air into the system that could trigger that sensor. Bill's Mafia, he's alive. Welcome, Black Full Flap. Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Good to be back. Cruise Hawks Aviator, do they have the ear of MSFS to ensure hot fixes and patches move quickly into the marketplace? They do. Well, we've discussed that, and I believe that problem of, patches and stuff only come out on, Thursdays? I believe that is gone. And so you should be able to expect the fixes and patches to come in a timely manner. Pirate Discretion, do you think your fighter jet past draws you more towards techie jets or mechanical jets? I think my autism takes me more towards mechanical jets. I don't think it's the fighter jet background. I think I like mechanical stuff. Computers, I fully realize the irony of this, saying this on a stream of a computer game to other gamers. Computerized airplanes don't really do much for me. Um, like, it's very hard for me to find interest in learning the system logic of the 220. But the 7.3, for example, I love. Hey, if I flip this valve, then this valve moves in the back of the airplane, which redirects hydraulic fluid to the. It's just I find that enjoyable. So I like techie jets, but mechanical jets, but that's a me thing. How are the sounds compared to real life? The sounds that's probably there are areas where the sounds can be improved, and the team is aware of that. The thing that Echo 19 ran into is there's not a lot of source material. I'm going to start us down a little early. So we're going to go vert speed, and then we're going to talk about the VNAV. There's not a bunch of source material on the 220, like there is for, say, the 7.3 or the 320. And so Echo 19 was having trouble getting source recordings that were clean enough to make a sound pack out of, but we're working on it. So there's the answer. I don't think that the sounds are where anybody wants them to be right now, including Echo 19, and it's going to be worked on. But at some point, the product had to be released, and it'll be a post-release thing. But there are some highlights, like the PTU, the flap sounds, the whale noise, the engines, I think, are all pretty good. The cabin ambiance is pretty good, but the cockpit, there are some like call-outs, for example, that need a little bit of work, and we'll get there. What's a feature of the 220 that's not supported today but you'd like to see added in the real airplane en route CPDLC? And I would like the engines to be more reliable. Elliot Jones, I can tell as someone in the video game industry for over 10 years, one of the best ways is to widen the player base and find key issues. It's just how life goes. It's not treating players like QA. Yeah, 100%, man. That's exactly what I was saying. Like, and I know that we talk about that in the community a lot. Like, hey, Microsoft is using the community as beta testers or whatever. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I'm having been on and I'm biased because I was on the test team. But I can tell you that the intent is never to do that. And if you run into a bug in the airplane, it's not for lack of testing, because the test team I would come home from trips and fire this thing up. My wife is like, you just got done flying a 220. Why are you flying a 220 on the computer? And it was just, hey, the team is passionate, and all the testers wanted to back them up as much as we could. Light Chop Hit, does the VSD have terrain? No, it does not. That is, I believe, to be honest with you, I don't know if we've actually brought that up as a feature to be added or not. The terrain map is, of course, modeled with the yellow and red, depending on your altitude, your terrain clearance, but it is not currently on the VSD. I'll have to defer to the team on whether or not that's a planned feature or not. I swear some of the best QA testers I've ever worked with will still not find some bugs. Dev is so complex, it's hard to work. Yeah, so, well, just as an example, right? Closing flight plan discontinuities caused a last-minute glitch because we tested it, it was good, it was working, everything was fine, and then the final build was pushed, and it was broken in the final build. And the devs dove into the issue, and it wasn't their code, it was just a different change completely unrelated to the FMS caused the Microsoft compiler to drop that piece of code out. But it worked on some people's computers and it didn't work on other people's computers. So that took, I don't know how many man hours to find that. And that's an example of something that you just don't find that kind of thing in testing unless you have multiple people with multiple systems. So, I know Ben Speedy, on a scale of 9, on a scale from 9 to 10, how accurate are the systems on the Synaptic A220? I'd give them from 1 to 10, I'd give them a 9. It's a very accurate sim. It's only going to get better, but what is here is very well modeled. Like as a real life 220 pilot, I can get in this airplane, do an A to B flight, and feel like I'm getting something out of the sim as far as my interaction with the avionics. Like I'm not building habit patterns specific for the sim, because that's the big problem as a real life pilot streamer, right? Is that you don't want to get into the sim and have to do re-entry checklist complete and do things differently in the sim than you do in real life, because then you're building bad habit patterns in real life, and I don't find myself doing that in the 220. So I think that's about the best compliment I can give the airplane. Crew Sox Aviator, from your single pilot jet experience to the gradual max takeoff power of the 220, do you feel like a Sunday driver at spool up on take? Dude, the 220 will put you back in the seat. It for a transport category jet, when the TLLS washes out at 60 to 80 knots and it spools up to full takeoff power, it puts you back in the seat. It's probably close to dry thrust, the feeling of dry thrust in a fighter. It's not afterburner, but dry thrust, it's pretty close. Variables, that's why. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about VNAV, because this is a big difference between the 220 and some other airplanes. So as you saw, I started this down early. You have to start the airplane down, or sorry, you don't have to start the airplane down, but you can early, just like a Boeing. But VNAV in this airplane is unlike a Boeing or an Airbus managed descent. VNAV is an overlay to all of the other vertical modes in the aircraft. And I'm going to turn the sound back up here. So right now we're on VNAV path. If I wanted to, I could go into vert speed, 2,400 feet a minute, and the airplane would descend at 2,400 feet a minute. We'll just showcase this down to Mark. Let's get down to Mark a little early. We'll go down at 3,000 feet a minute. And what you'll see is the airplane's going to descend below the VNAV. Well, we've got to leave the VNAV path first. We'll do flight level change. It's kind of hard to get away from the path, but we'll do vert speed. Try this. So if you get off of the VNAV path, in VVS, the airplane will descend in vertical speed at the commanded rate until a VNAV restriction stops it. You'll see I just turned VNAV off, and so now the airplane will descend unrestricted in VNAV. So if you want to do an unrestricted descent, you have to turn the VNAV system off by pressing the button. If you want to descend in vertical speed or flight level change or flight path angle, let's say, and get away from the path for some reason, like you wanted to get down early, you can. But whereas in the 7.3 you would have to go into flight level change and lose VNAV protections, in this airplane you can put it in VS or FPA or flight level change, engage VNAV, and the airplane will descend in VFPA, and it will respect the constraint at 180. It's a little confusing at first, but once you figure it out, it's very user friendly. Thanks, AJ. So, like here, we have the flexibility now where I can bomb down underneath the vertical path, and what you'll see is that once we hit 18,000 feet or flight level 180 at Mark, the airplane will level off. So if ATC said, hey, Delta 1422, expedite your descent down to flight level 180 for traffic, this allows us to do that and not lose the protections of VNAV downrange, at Wiley and the further points. I guess the clearance would have to be expedite down to flight level 180, then descend via. So, the little red diamond is telling you you're hot. Yeah. So this right here is your vertical deviation snowflake, we call it. That's showing us right now the path is above us, so we're well below the path, and that jives with what we're seeing over here on the VSD. Yep, Crew Sox Aviator, that makes a lot of sense. It's the plan, but not the how. So either -3 FBA or VVS or FLC, but it still keeps the plan. That's 100% correct. Now, if you end up on the planned line, right, that the jet calculated, it will switch to VPath, and then it will follow the VPath down. But you can still deviate from that plan with flight level change, VS, VFPA, etc. And that's where you get these goofy FMA modes, right? Where like VFPA is VNAV protected flight path angle, VVS is VNAV protected vertical speed, VFLC is VNAV protected flight level change. How works the ILS approach, like on Garmin 1000? Okay, it does an ILS approach. The real airplane does a horrible ILS approach. Synaptic has modeled the inability of the 220 to do a clean ILS approach. It is truly a feature, not a bug, because the way the airplane intercepts the ILS is the DMC, the whatever avionics cabinet that is, 1,000 ago, 19 for 18, intercepts the ILS, but it does it without the wind correction. And so the airplane will be intercepting in wind-corrected GPS guidance. There's V out, V cap, so VNAV protected altitude, VNAV capture, because it's a VNAV induced altitude, not a selected altitude. What was I saying? Oh, so the initial ILS capture, it will switch from the GPS guidance, which has wind correction, to an uncorrected ILS, and it'll do a big wing dip, and it'll either overshoot or undershoot the ILS because of the wind. And then you'll be flying down the ILS as the airplane's hunting, trying to figure out the wind correction. And then when it switches from DMC control to PFCC, to the Precision Flight Control Computer's logic, then the airplane will figure out the wind correction and go back and grab the ILS. So it does a very sloppy ILS intercept, but that is intended because it's modeling behavior in the actual airplane. Which is why the majority of 220 pilots actually prefer RNAV approaches. All right, we'll say that ATC said, hey, Delta 1422, maintain 300 knots better in the descent. Okay, we're just going to switch the speed to man speed 300, and we'll go extortion down the path that way. We can set the altimeters. All right, so we got 2996 is cross-checked. The ISI Barrow currently is inoperative, but that is planned for a future fix. All right, you can see here, as the path comes in, V out V changes to V path, and the airplane starts down on a VNAV protected path down to 13,000 feet. Cal MV3, would you say this is a study level aircraft? I would, in that it's going to take a lot of study to learn how to use it after after like a 7.3 or a 320. That said, certain features which are planned are not implemented yet. So for example, some failures like engine fires are not simulated yet. So if you're wanting to use it for like emergency procedures study, then I wouldn't call it study level. But if you just want to do a point A to point B flight, you're certainly going to have to put in the time and effort to study to do it correctly. Michael Davis, hey, would there be a way to turn TLS off for short runways when needed? No, there is not, and we do TLLS takeoffs out of John Wayne all the time, and your performance data accounts for it. What instance do you prefer ILS over RNP? The only time that we use ILS, that I like to use ILS, is on a visual approach, backing up a visual approach. And the reason for that is because the 220 cannot intercept an RNP or an RNAV approach inside the final approach fix. And so if you're doing a visual and air traffic control is not handcuffed to vectoring you outside the final approach fix, then an ILS is going to be more reliable. But other than that, if I have the option to shoot an LPV approach, then I will do that every time. see, we've got, this is called an FPTA, a Flight Plan Target Altitude. So this is telling you what the computer is going to target. This is telling you what you have targeted in the flight control panel window. So the common theme, just like how every jet, blue is pilot selected, magenta is airplane selected. So the airplane is going to level in V out V at 13,000 feet for this restriction. The pilot is commanded 10, and then once we make this restriction, then it'll continue on down to 10. Aiden Jim, what was your path to becoming an airline pilot? I was a naval aviator, so I flew F-18s and F-16s for 14 years, and then got out of the military and became an airline pilot. So I had some flight time. I was a private pilot before joining the Navy, but the vast majority of my flight training was done via the Navy. Okay, ice. So the airplane has picked up ice on the ice detector probes on the nose, and it's automatically turned on the cowl and wing anti-ice to get rid of that. Rob MC, in the documentation, does it show how to do an LPV approach? I actually haven't looked at the documentation because I don't need it, so I can't tell you the answer to that. If it doesn't, I am planning on doing a tutorial series that will teach how to do an LPV approach, but it's very, very simple. Watch yours. Too late. Alright. So you can see here the airplane captured V out V at 13,000 feet, made the restriction, and now it's just going to proceed straight at 13 or level at 13,000 feet until it intercepts the next geometric path down to Beauty. Now, the other thing that the airplane can do is what's called a vertical direct to. So let's say for some reason we didn't want to go level here. We didn't want to fly level and then descend down to 10 for max efficiency. We just wanted to do a nice gradual constant rate descent down to Beauty. You could go direct to Beauty at 10. You want to deselect VNAV before you do this because the jet's going to have to recalculate the path. Execute it. Re-engage VNAV. And now the airplane is going to intercept a VNAV path that's nice and gradual and steady down to 10,000 feet. Voice is a bit low, I'll bump it up a bit. There we go. So now we effectively told the jet, hey, go directly to that fix vertically. Okay, we got to do our descent check actually, so let's do our descent checklist. The other nice thing about this checklist page is it's very easy to see what checklists you've done and which ones you haven't, so there's no more guessing, hey, did we do the descent checklist? Just pull it up and the jet says that you haven't. We've got to ding the cabin. Get the lights on. Altimeters were set. Alright, descent check. Altimeters are 2996, cross check. Minimums are Barra 1210. Landing data is flap 5, ref 122. The cabin notification is complete. The approach briefing is complete. Auto brakes are off. Descent checklist is complete. The reason that we're doing auto brake off is the airplane, we're still working on the logic for auto brake engagement after touchdown. And so right now the nose slams down a little bit hard on touchdown. That's a known issue and it's going to get corrected. But in the meantime, we're just, we'll land with the auto brakes off. They work to decelerate the airplane and they decelerate at the correct rate. It just slams the nose down a little bit. The behavior immediately after touchdown needs to be tweaked a little bit. What's your schedule like as a 220 pilot compared to the 7.3? Are you flying more or less? Well, it's less about the airplane and it's more about your seniority in the seat. So on the 737, I was very senior as an FO, so I could kind of pick my schedule and what days I wanted to work and et cetera, et cetera. Whereas as a captain, I'm much more junior, and so I've lost a lot of that flexibility and I'm working more days a month and stuff. So it's less about the airplane and more about the seniority. Al Loper, yeah, I'm looking through the manual that can be downloaded. No procedures, just a lot of info on systems. Okay. Yeah, so I think that once the airplane releases, and I'll start working on some pre-release stuff as far as tutorials for, LPV approaches, ILSs, that kind of thing. That is true. A220 driver has done an amazing job on a pilot guide. It's in the Synaptic Discord, so certainly go give that a look. And it is it's a pretty amazing piece of work. Matter of fact, I've downloaded it and I've learned things about the real airplane from his work on that. So, all right, 1,000 to go, 11 for 10. We can do a approach checklist. So we pull up arrival data and checklist. So you can see, we can tell exactly which checklists have been completed and which ones haven't. So we haven't done the approach check yet. The flight nav instruments are verified for the RNAV X-rate at 3.1, and the altimeters have been checked. Approach checklist complete. Might be a record flight from Ord to LGA. Yeah, we haven't gone into holding yet. V1, you're back. Are you up in cruise right now? Departing on the JFK5 now. Don't give me an RA. Sounds good. Another shout out to V1 Sim, man, for helping little Sim get his streaming setup going. I really appreciate that, brother. Okay, so we're going to level off here at 10. Still doing 300 knots. So that's a threat. Making sure that we don't bust the speed limit going downhill. Okay, and so now we'll say that ATC gives us a manual descent, like, hey, descend and maintain 6,000 feet. Okay. So Delta 1422 down to 6,000 feet, so we'll dial in 6,000. We'll turn VNAV off, and then do a flight level change. That was a FD mode change because it changed from V Alt S. It shouldn't have given us one, but it did. But now we're going to go into FLC and down to 6,000 feet. Oh, actually, stop. I just talked about that threat. We got slowed to 250 first. So we're going to slow to 250 because we don't get a speeding ticket. Ooh, ground stop podcast. I'll see you on the pod, Chief. Love it. Ooh. All right, so we're decelling. You can see we just hit the altitude button and it stopped at its current altitude. It's climbing back up to the altitude I hit the button at. That's correct behavior. And we're within 10 knots. FLC. Down we go. They'll never know. The airplane does a pretty good job decelerating level. Not such a great job decelerating in a descent. So, it's the standard. You can't go down and slow down at the same time, but it's true to a greater extent in this aircraft than any other airplane that I've flown, for certain. MRM05, there is a built-in 250 below 10, but I overrode it because I was in manual speed. So if I had left the speed in FMS, then the aircraft would have taken care of me. But when ATC said, hey, maintain 300 knots or better, instead of programming it into the FMS, all I did was I switched the speed collar to man speed 300. So I removed the FMS protection for 250 and 10. So that was a pilot technique choice. which is a real world technique. We do that a lot real world as well, but you just have to be cognizant of not doing what I just did, and trying to descend to the new altitude at 300. You could absolutely have set 300 in the box, but the problem in real life is if you put 300 in the box and they descend you to exactly 10,000, the jet will decelerate to 250, whereas the actual reg is 250 below 10. So at 10,000 feet, you're actually allowed to go 300 knots, which New York takes advantage of all the time. So you end up typically going man speed for that reason. Missy, I have a number for you. Ooh, please no. Is the flare started at the 30-foot call out? If you start flaring at 30 feet, you'll end up a little bit high. It's very similar to the 7.3. It's about a potato after the 30-foot call out. So 50, 40, 30. Now, just after the 30-foot call out is when you want to flare. Rolling into the turn in LNAV here. It's a very smooth LNAV jet. All right, I'm just going to connect Pachu after Apple. Actually, we'll just go direct to Pachu. Again, there's multiple ways to do this. You can take Pachu, put it in the 2 line. This is the front line. You can put Pachu in the 2 line. You can use the direct 2 soft key, or you can use the direct 2 hard key, or you can use the Snowflake direct 2. There's a million ways of doing everything in the 220, and that's a different way than I've used in the past. So we'll just go with that. All right, so we're direct to Pachu. We'll descend to 3,000. Do it in FLC at 250. Red Sailor, no. At cruise, you typically don't see the spoilers come up. That's mostly aileron deflection. You'll see spoiler deflection once we slow down a little bit, but yeah, typically not at 250 knots. Or if you do, it'll be very, very minimal. Okay, so now we've been cleared for let's say that we've been cleared for the RNAV X-ray. So the memory item is AVA, approach, VNAV, and altitude. So we can hit the approach button all the way out here because it's an RNAV approach. Everything's been cleaned up in the box, so we can hit approach. We'll get approach FMS1. VNAV, we re-engage. We just check that the FPTA, the flight plan target altitude, is at or below where we're descending to. So we're descending to 3. The FPTA matches that at 3, so we can turn VNAV on, and it's not going to mess up our descent. And then also, the FPTA is going to stop us at 3, so we can dial in the altitude at GACAR, which is, I believe, 2,200. Yeah, 2,200. So we can go 2,200, and you got to push the knob in to get hundreds. There we go. So we've done approach, VNAV 2200. The approach is set. Fornax, how is the airplane energy-wise compared to the real thing, dude? The team spent a lot of time trying to get the energy correct, and it's pretty damn close. I mean, it's well within the deviation between one airframe and another. I'll say that. Okay. We need to be 165 knots or less by GACAR. So we've got our 15-mile fixed ring to start that decel. 10 miles inside, I'm single pilot, so we're going to slow down to 210 at this point. Just get configured a little bit early. The speed window will not let you spin anything below the VMIN trim. And so you'll find sometimes, like if you want to spin 190, the window actually won't go down that low. And that's just saying, hey man, I can't command that low of a speed until you get some high lift devices out. So that is accurate to the real airplane. All right, 230 is flap 1 speed. We wait 10 knots below it, so there's 220. Here comes flap 1. That's a real nice engine sound right there. The auto throttles are slow in the real airplane, so you know it overshot the bug by about 5 knots, and that's pretty accurate. The real airplane does that as well, so they captured the slow spool of the auto throttles accurately. We've joked about it a lot on the test team that a lot of the issues on the 220 may be, hey, the auto throttles are really slow and they're not working right. Yes, that's correct, because the real airplane doesn't do that either. There's a lot of annoying things about the actual 220 that I think simmers will find maybe a little frustrating or surprising that that's an issue in the actual airplane. Okay, so we've got a little issue with our FPTA here. This should be at 3,000 feet. We'll see if it corrects itself. But Pachu, the restriction is 3,000. That FPTA should be 3,000, and I believe it'll fix itself as we get closer. We will see, but that is a small bug. Do you land with the auto throttles on or off in real life? I personally fly with them off, just because the auto throttles in this airplane, they slow you down. They retard at 30 feet regardless of your energy state, and I've been got by that a couple times, so I like to be in charge of when the airplane pulls power. All right, here comes flap 2. There's flap 2, 180. All right. And 165 at Gacker. This is a marketplace release. That's correct, so console compatible. I believe it's console compatible, which kind of surprises me for what a detailed airplane it is, but I believe that to be the case, yes. Alrighty, chat. If I'm MIA in the chat, I apologize. It's about to get a little busy here. We're going to slow to 170 and throw flap 3 out. The flap 3 speed is the same as the flap 2 speed, so flap 3 is kind of the poor man's speed brake. If you don't want to use the speed brake, just put flap 2 or flap 3 out. The terrain I don't think will be compatible, and that's correct, because this is an external plug-in that's running the terrain. You see the subtle wing flex, the ailerons deflecting down once the flaps are out. A little concerned about this FPTA at 10,000 feet. We'll see if that should fix itself here, and I'll actually report that to the team. But didn't have an issue with it on the test stream, so we'll see. There it is. All right, it updated to 2,500. Here we go. Gear down, flap 4. Is our VRF. Dirty up a little little early, just because it's such a complex procedure. All right, here comes flap 5. Piat Boo, it's FPTA's flight plan target altitude. Alright, so there's our flap 5 coming down. So you can see flap 5 is where the flaps really start to angle down. We've got a nice view of New York there too, actually. Alright, so we've got ref set. Alright, here comes the checklist, landing checklist. We've got, it's the only airplane I've ever flown where landing gear is not on the landing checklist. Landing checklist, flap 5 and 5. ICAS is checked. Landing checklist is complete. Alright. What is it for the FPTA? That is effectively the VNAV target altitude. That's what that is. So there's LaGuardia right there ahead of us. We're gonna end up kind of following the expressway here and then doing the left-hand turn into 3-1. Mr. Aviation Channel, it is not on Marketplace yet this week. All right, VGP, that's VNAV Protected Glide Path. So we're going to go up to 3,000 for the mist.
2,500.
All right, now we can just watch the airplane do its thing here. Watch your ears. Got the landing gear configured. Got flaps configured. There's no requirement to arm the speed brakes in the 220. It's all automatic lift dump functionality. No pilot action required. The seat position they put is the one you used to. Yes, this is my seating position in the real airplane. All right, we got the expressway visual up there. Any flaps require gear down. Flap 5 requires the gear to be down. Flap 4, you can go up to flap 4 without a problem. It is compatible with the default recording software. Do it, AJ. What flap setting do you usually put the gear down at? Typically, you'll be flap 2, 180, and then the call is gear down, flap 4, landing checklist. But because you don't need the gear down until flap 5, sometimes you'll go out of sequence, and it's not common, but I'd say it's not unusual to be at flap 4 prior to the landing gear. What do you think about performance in terms of FPS? Better than the Phoenix? I think it's probably on par with the Phoenix. If you have the terrain map running, it can be fairly heavy on frames. In fact, I'm going to turn the terrain off over here. I've been able to run it. Like I said, my sim is on ultra. You can see the cars on the freeway down here. I mean, I've got this thing maxed out. My 5090's on fire right now, but it's hacking it. It's gonna VGP. It's turning onto the base here. This is all autopilot. I haven't hand flown. I'm not hand flying this yet. So this is all the default LNAV, VNAV, and auto throttles flying this approach. Okay, we're below. We went through the minimum, so we're visual the field.
500.
Internet's struggling a little bit with the terrain rendering. We're doing good here. There we go. I have not had any other add-on successfully fly this approach. Alright, here we go. Alright, autopilot's coming off. Auto throttles are coming off. Alright, I went a little high in the takeover.
200.
High. A little bit of a slideshow here. That's all right.
100. 50. 30. 20. 10.
reverse, speed brakes up. Manual brakes, 80 knots. Pull the reversers back. There we go. The reversers are programmed so that you can actually keep the buckets out even when you're at reverse idle, which is important because the high bypass fans, you end up keeping them out quite a bit. Alright, there we go. Clearing behind us. And the after landing flow is time to be a flap. So time, start the timer. To be pump on. APU bleed comes off. And flap, retract the flaps. We're going to go to the inboard taxiway and taxi the gate. Get that PTU running. And I'll get the lights figured out once I turn onto this taxiway here. Okay, strobes can come off, wing inspection can come off. I forgot to do the lights for clear to land, that's fine. Alright. And we'll get on the inboard, taxi into the gate. The spoiler mismatch is my my Bravo has a little bit of an axis issue, I think. Alright. We got the replay there, so we'll watch that back from the outside view. That was the RNAV X-Ray into 3.1 with aftermarket MK Studios LGA and every setting in the sim on Ultra as well as the 220. All right. It did, yeah. It does. It handles the RNAV approaches very good. It also did the one into DCA really well. I've tested that one a lot. Alright, so the FO will bring up the electrical page over here and the checklist over here. And we'll do the after landing checklist. Anti-ice as required. Timer was started. After landing checklist complete. The engine cooldown in this airplane is critical. You need 3 minutes of engine cooldown before you shut down the engines, or you could actually physically damage them. And they want you to have 5 minutes, so it's critical that you get the good cooldown on the engines. All right, we're going to start the APU. Correct, and streaming in addition to all that, Darwin. Yeah, 100%. Why do you turn on the 2B pump? You turn on the 2B pump, we'll look at the hydraulics synaptic, so that you can shut down the right engine, lose the 2A engine-driven pump, and still have 2B hydraulics. Gus, yeah, the auto throttle is a little sluggish in real life. Yep. That is 100% true. Yeah, Mind Brain 03. Yeah, it's the pilot's choice. It looks like you're a 220 pilot. Yeah, it is pilot's choice if you want to use it or not. I'd say it's probably 60-40 with 60% using the auto throttles all the way down, and 40% turning it off. Goosebump Racing, yeah, so that's why I didn't use the auto throttles, or sorry, the auto brakes. Yeah, the auto brakes induce a little bit of a sponginess in the gear, and the nose slams down quick, so that's something that the team is going to tune. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. The team's aware of it, and they're gonna work it. So, not your imagination, not a game changer for me. I just use the auto brakes off. For now, but it is going to be tuned because a couple of team members brought it up, and they're going to get it sorted. All right. Pete Ski, thank you, sir, for the $20 super chat, man. Enjoyed the stream. Great to have you back. Don't be a stranger. I will try not to, man. I've missed this. So I'm really hoping to be able to find the time to stream more. To be honest with you, it was kind of this airplane was sort of responsible for some of it, because the time I did have to use the computer, I was testing instead of streaming. So now that this is released, should hopefully see more of me. All right, there's coming up on 5 minutes, so we could shut down one, or number 2 rather, for a single engine taxi, but we'll just park here at the gate. We'll check out the replay, and then I'll walk you through the engine shutdown, once the replay is over. Go. All right, parking brake is set, and we're gonna pause for a second on the flows, and we're gonna watch the replay. So stop that. I'm gonna save this. Play. The airplane does fully, interact with the flight sim replay software, so you can replay your approaches and such without any aftermarket software, which is good for a limfac like me. Classy traveler, you're kind of late. Yeah, you are, but you're getting here for the best part. We're going to do the arrival into LaGuardia here. Minimize that window. You mentioned they need 3 minutes of cooldown, so you let them run for 3 minutes at the gate before shutting down, or how should I understand it? So they need to run at 40% or less for 3 minutes, and so you just taxi slow to get 3 minutes. So if you're ever on the 220 and it's taxiing really slow, that's why. Pete, anytime the 2B pump is on, we turn it on every single landing, but the intent is so that you can shut down engine number 2. So. All right, you can see here that the outboard roll spoiler is prioritized when you're in flap 5, and that is something that Synaptic have simulated. Flap 1, 2, and 3, all 4 multifunction spoilers act as roll controllers. Flap 4 and 5, the outboard is prioritized. And then if you really lay into it, then the inboard multifunction spoilers will kick in as well. All right, coming in here. The airplane did a really good job playing that RNAV. I kind of bungled the autopilot disconnect, but here we go. Let's see how we did here. Chef Aviation, I don't know what day it's coming. Real gentle flare, just as per the real airplane, and roll them on. Center line is left in chat. Yes, the airplane has been tested in VR. All right. Well, chat, that was not half bad. I'll take that. See how that looked from let's see how that looked from the passenger perspective here. The Clive Smith, the 100 is probably going to be a second because the team wants to clean up some stuff on the 300 and then include the new features like the HUD and the steep approach mode. So it's going to be a little while before the 100. look at the detail underneath the spoilers and all the modeling. And the spoilers automatically stow at 16 knots ground speed. So as I got on the brakes here to make the turn, the spoilers stowed. What liveries are included? Delta, JetBlue, Breeze, Air Baltic, Swiss, ITA, and Korean, I believe. Pete, do you think the wing flex is too much at touchdown? I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it. Let's look at it. We'll do one more replay and then we'll jump in the gate and do the shutdown procedures. I'll be honest with you, I didn't really look much at the wing flex. Got to bring the flaps down separately by your own controls, but so I think the wing flex on final here is just about perfect. Yeah, it might be a little bit on the fast side, and I think the product of that is the lift dump spoilers in the Synaptic actually dump lift. They're not just speed brakes like in a lot of other add-ons. So I think it's just the way that Flight Sim 24 handles the lift dump spoilers actually dumping all the lift off the wing. But I don't think it's crazy fast. All right, let's fast forward this to the gate. All right, and I'm going to take back aircraft control, close the replay tool down, set the brake on. We're going to retract the flaps, and we will go over the shutdown procedure. Okay, so the captain generally taxis in on the status page, and that's to monitor brake temperatures as you taxi in. The FO will bring up the checklist page and the electrical page, and then as they start the APU, they'll make sure that the APU is picked up on the electrical bus, and then you can shut down engine number 2. If you want a single engine taxi in, so we'll simulate that we did that. Alright, so there goes engine number 2. I think we need to pull up a little bit. No, we're good. Okay, then we come in, stop at the gate. Captain sets the parking brake, calls out parking brake on. FO repeats it. Then the next call is let them up, shut them down as you turn the nose wheel steering off. So we'll let them up, seatbelt signs come off, shut them down, other engine comes off, come up to the overhead, 2B pump goes back to auto, beacon switch comes off, and the APU bleed can come on. Shutdown checklist, everything is sensed. And then what we're waiting for in real life is once the doors go disarmed, so the flight attendants hear the seatbelt sign come off, they disarm the doors, captain calls for shutdown checklist, and the shutdown checklist is complete. And that is a full gate-to-gate flight in the Synaptic A220. We'll get the ground equipment coming here. Attach the APU. We'll do a full secure since you guys will probably want to know how to do that. Alright, so you can see the doors here open in white. We get a door open ICAS. Any failures of the Optibus you dislike? We'll cover that in some future streams. There are some that are not really awesome. Phil, do the spoilers automatically retract at 16 or 60? 16. 1-6. Bill's Mafia, the fuel switches look finicky. They're just locking toggle switches. But they do have interactions where you can grab them or you can scroll them with the mouse wheel. It's kind of dealer's choice there. Did any procedures change for your airline after the fatal Swiss Air incident? No, but the Swiss incident, from what I heard, the fatality was not entirely due to the aircraft. There was some training there, as far as issues with using the PBE. All right, we have external power available, so we're going to put the aircraft on the bus. We're going to turn the side windows off, or all the windshield heat off. We're going to kill the APU. That has an automatic cool down associated with it, so it's going to go to cool down mode, and then it'll shut itself down after a minute. And then we can go do the secure checklist. So first step of the secure check is to put the checklist on the captain side CTP, and that's so that when these power off, it's still accessible. The 3A, 3B, and 2B pumps come on, so 3A, 3B, and 2B pumps all come off. The equipment cooling inlet right here is turned off. That is currently has a small bug with it, so that's going to be fixed in a pretty immediate patch there. Emergency exit lights are going to come off. All right, that's the correct master caution ding. Now we have to wait for the APU to shut down completely, and the reason is the if you shut the airplane down before, it'll shut down perfectly fine, but the APU oil will not have correctly scavenged out of the APU back to the tank. And so what we basically figured out was by waiting for the APU to shut down, the RPM to get to 0, and the door to close, that gives the oil enough time to drain from the APU into the APU sump so that you don't get a low APU oil warning on the next startup that then requires the APU to be either serviced or MEL'd. So that is the reason behind that. And then we can take a look. I kind of want to open the engines up for you guys. I don't know if I can do that from this view or if I need to be in a... Let's see, do I need to be... Maybe I can do it from here. Let's drop outside. Will work from the pseudo cockpit view here. Maybe not. You might have to be in the walk-around mode. But the engine cowlings do open. Yeah, I think you have to be in walk-around mode. But the engine cowlings open and the entire engine is modeled, which is pretty nuts. All right, we'll do that on another stream. I'll get the 2024 walk-around figured out, and we can explore it in a different stream. So APU door is closed. Now we're waiting for the APU RPM to go down to 0. That's accurate, where the door closes first. And fun fact, our company, we used APU door close first, did that for a month, and then said, nope, that's not enough. And then we did RPM to 0, and that seemed like it worked. All right, APU to 0, that's good. External power to available. All right. Battery 1 and battery 2 off. Cold dark jet. Alrighty, y'all. Well, that is pretty much it for me. I appreciate you joining in. That was a long stream, but hopefully we helped you get off the ground with your Synaptic A220. I'm available via email or Discord. We have a Discord, Full Flap Sim. Turk, if you could post that in the chat, I'd appreciate it. Happy to answer questions there. And we'll be doing some more of these in the near future. So overall, my recommendation for the product is, you're getting an A220. You're getting a very modern airliner. There are some small quirks that you're going to have to work around. Some of them related to the real airplane, and some of them, small software quirks that Synaptic's going to work out. But I think overall, it's going to be the best simulation of a modern airliner outside of a 320 or a Boeing that we have in the sim. So I'm certainly enjoying it. I've been flying it, you know, for the past couple months, just loving it, and I think you guys would be happily served, very well served by it as well. So we'll keep doing some more streams prior to release, and we'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks for joining in. Cheers.